Chapter 2399. You can already do 8th refinement? Chapter 2399. You can already do 8th refinement. This was very much Grandmaster Zicheng style. It seemed like the only thing in his eyes was profit. As for any honor of alchemy, how could that possibly be more important than earning a few starstones in his eyes? Ling Han nodded with a smile. I've earned a lot. Though he did not have much time to concoct alchemical pills for profit, he did have an alchemy pharmacy and also had Lu Jun working for him. So he actually had earned a considerable amount. Of course, compared to the accomplishment of him robbing over 100 ancestral kings, it was really far, far too little. Grandmaster Zi Cheng laughed loudly, and only then expressed his concern over Ling Han's skill in alchemy. Brat, are you at 6th refinement yet? Ling Han nodded. I reached 6th refinement long ago. Then, when can you do 7th refinement? Grandmaster Zi Cheng asked further, his expression completely natural. That was because Ling Han's natural talent at alchemy was really too high. He had to have advanced into the 6th refinement in the tens of thousands of years, but that might not be for 7th refinement. Ling Han cracked a grin. I can already do 7th refinement. Only now did Grandmaster Zi Cheng really get a shock. Brat, not bad. 7th refinement was his equal. This little disciple of his was indeed extraordinary to manage to catch up to him in such a short period of time. If so, surpassing him would only be a matter of time. He did not feel the slightest jealousy. The stronger the disciple, and the faster he advanced, the more pleased he would naturally be as the master. Then, when do you expect that you would be able to attain 8th refinement? Grandmaster Zi Cheng was filled with anticipation. Ling Han was slightly sheepish. The expectations this master had for him seemed to be a little low. If he said he could already do 10th refinement, would it shock the old man to death? But he could not deceive his master, which made him hesitate slightly. Brat, don't feel embarrassed. The stage of 8th refinement is indeed hard to breach. Just look at me. See how many hundreds of millions of years I have been stuck on this level? Grandmaster Zi Cheng thought that Ling Han breaking through to the 8th refinement was far in the indefinite future. Though he felt slightly disappointed, he still comforted Ling Han, who Nyo couldn't help but say, Old man, Nyo's Ling Han has already reached the 8th refinement long ago. The damn old geezer actually dared to look down on Ling Han. Cough! Grandmaster Zi Cheng was shocked and hurriedly confirmed with Ling Han. Really? Only then did Ling Han smile and answer, Indeed, I can do 8th refinement. Fuck! Even Grandmaster Zi Cheng couldn't help but be moved. Before Ling Han had broken through to 8th refinement, he very much hoped that his disciple could advance to this stage. But when Ling Han had truly attained 8th refinement, he was slightly dejected. He had not expected that his disciple would surpass him so quickly. Come, show me, he said. Ling Han nodded. Actually, Grandmaster Zi Cheng's natural talent in alchemy was also very strong. And the reason why he had not advanced into 8th refinement was because, firstly, 8th refinement was indeed difficult, and secondly, the old man had no one to lead the way in front of him. If Grandmaster Zi Cheng could see the process of 8th refinement a few more times, he would definitely be able to take this step. Thus, Ling Han took out a 4-star alchemical pill and began to perform spirit refinement. Now, before the 10th refinement, he practically could ensure a 100% success rate in spirit refinement. Thus, when it was similarly 8th refinement or 9th refinement, he naturally had no wish to waste it on low-grade alchemical pills. 1st refinement, 2nd refinement, 7th refinement. After reaching 7th refinement, Ling Han paused slightly and then began 8th refinement. Grandmaster Zi Cheng's expression involuntarily became solemn. 8th refinement was a step that he had never managed to take, and he was even more nervous than Ling Han as an observer, his hands involuntarily clenching into tight fists. But Ling Han's movements were smooth and unhurried. There was not the slightest pause. It was as if spirit refinement was something as simple and easily done as just sweeping the floor in his hands. Very quickly he was finished, and the 8th golden veined pattern appeared on the alchemical pill. 8th refinement. Grandmaster Zi Cheng felt his heart throbbing wildly, but after a while he broke into a smile, which soon turned into loud laughter that seemed capable of shaking the heavens. "Good disciple! Good disciple! Good disciple!" he hurriedly said, almost breaking out into tears. The accomplishments of the disciple had surpassed the master, which made him feel both excited and exhilarated. Of course, he also felt slightly rueful. The rear wave had completely pushed down the front wave. The women exchanged a smile, and the Empress said, "Old geezer, husband standard is not just limited to 8th refinement." When these words fell, even Grandmaster Zi Cheng couldn't help but tremble. What? The 8th refinement was still not the end. It can't be that you've reached 9th refinement, brat. Grandmaster Zi Cheng had really gotten a scare. He could still imagine 8th refinement because he himself was actually not too far from this stage as well. But 9th refinement was a threshold that he had really never come into contact with. It was a stage that was filled with mystery for him. "Brat, you're not going to tell me that you can do the 9th refinement too, right?" he asked. At first, Ling Han had not planned to tell the old man the truth so quickly, fearing that he could not take it. This would be a little too stimulating. But since the old man had asked, he could only nod. "I can." Instantly, Grandmaster Zi Cheng was speechless and gaping, dumbstruck. 9th refinement was too fantastical. "Show me," the old man said in a shaking voice. Ling Han began. For him, 9th refinement was only slightly difficult. He still managed to finish very quickly. The 9th golden veined pattern, 9th refinement. Grandmaster Zi Cheng practically snatched this alchemical pill over. Holding it in his hand, his eyes were closed, with him revealing an expression of great enjoyment. "From today onwards, this alchemical pill is the most prized treasure of Alchemy City," the old man declared. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. "Master, you cannot be greedy with your disciple." Grandmaster Zi Cheng naturally knew that Ling Han was just joking, but his hand was gripped tightly, as if he feared that Ling Han would snatch the pill from him. He was acting very childishly. The women all pouted. Merely 9th refinement. And it was the prized treasure of the city? Their man could still do the 10th refinement. Bewitching Maiden opened her mouth. "Ling Han Wu." She had just barely opened her mouth when Ling Han had stopped her with a hand on her mouth. The old man was already shocked enough. If he knew that Ling Han could now do the 10th refinement, he might really go mad. Grandmaster Zi Cheng was distracted. He would keep this divine pill in his collection from now onwards, and only the most outstandingly talented disciples would be able to study it so they can increase their comprehension of alchemy. "Go on, go on." He waved a hand as he stowed the alchemical pill carefully. Ling Han and the others were all smiling. The old man really still had a bit of childish innocence. They settled down first. It was rare for them to return, so they naturally could not just leave immediately. Now that the chairperson had returned, everyone in Alchemy City naturally rejoiced. Grandmaster Zi Cheng took care of arranging a grand feast, inviting the various forces of Alchemy City. Grandmaster Zi Cheng did not mention Ling Han's standards in alchemy in too much detail, but only revealed the subtle message that his disciple was no longer inferior to himself. Even so, the Alchemy City was still in an uproar. Did this mean that they now had another 4-star Grandmaster? A great feast was held, and those like those previous holy sons and holy daughters were all convinced now. They did not dare to harbor the slightest disloyalty at all. Ling Han had already become a 4-star Grandmaster, and who knew, he might have reached the 7th refinement as well, or Grandmaster Zicheng would not have said that he was no longer inferior to me. This was too shocking. Only a few tens of thousands of years had passed, and another such king of alchemy had already appeared. Ha ha ha! Just when the celebration was being held, a loud laugh rang out, and a young man appeared quickly after. His arms crossed behind his back, he strode over from the distance, as if there was no one around him. Immediately, someone stood up and shouted, "Identify yourself!" "Xie Yanbing," the young man announced proudly, and then paused slightly. "Western Celestial Realm, Ancient Alchemy Tower." Commotion rose up among the crowd. This young man was actually an heir of the Ancient Alchemy Tower. It should be known that whether in terms of cultivation or alchemy, the Western Celestial Realm had surpassed the Eastern Celestial Realm, and it was a crushing superiority at that. Not only did the Ancient Alchemy Tower have a considerable number of 4-star alchemists, they even had the true big players of Alchemy 5-star alchemists. Then, what was the meaning of Xie Yangbing's visit now? Chapter 2400, Forcing Abdication. Chapter 2400, Forcing Abdication. Grandmaster Zicheng frowned slightly. In the past, there had also been visitors from the Ancient Alchemy Tower, claiming they wanted to improve the Eastern Celestial Realm's skill in alchemy. But in truth, it was just an attempt to seize power and turn Alchemy City into their private possession. And here was another. However, he immediately broke into a smile. Others might not be aware, but he was very clear that his disciple was already a 9th Refinement Supreme Grandmaster. Aside from 5-star Grandmasters, who else could suppress Ling Han? An attempt to seize power in cultivation had to be based on true battle prowess, while trying to seize power over alchemy would be based on skill in alchemy. Ling Han was already invincible, so whom could he fear? With this in mind, he did not show any temper. Instead, he revealed a smile, appearing very calm and steady. Though Grandmaster Zicheng had not stepped out, there were naturally those who wanted to curry favor with him that would speak up. "Friend Xia, our chairperson has just returned, and has just become a 4-star Grandmaster. Why don't you join us for a celebratory cup of wine?" A hint of disdain appeared in Xie Yangbing's expression. "It is precisely because I have heard that the great Alchemy City is actually in the hands of a little brat, and so have come to see whether this person has the character for it." These words had gone too far, and a number of people immediately stood up, glaring at him angrily. If they did not show their loyalty now, what would they be waiting for? Xie Yangbing was completely disdainful, and instead revealed his badge. Instantly, a ring of shocked exclamations rang out. 4-star Grandmaster. It was really unexpected that such a young man would actually be a 4-star Grandmaster. Looking at Ling Han, he was also unreasonably young, his flame of life having only been burning for several million years with time acceleration effects. The flame of life would not be sped up. Everyone couldn't help but feel rueful. The present world truly belonged to the youth. And with such a show, at least half of those that had previously voluntarily stood up sat back down quietly, and it was not that the other half did not want to sit back down, but rather they could not bring themselves to, because others were looking at them. They had to find a suitable chance too, right? Chairperson Ling. Xie Yangbing saw everyone's embarrassing actions and merely crooked his lips, revealing a hint of disdain. He turned to Ling Han. "I heard that you are constantly absent from Alchemy City. What right do you have to lead this sacred land of alchemy of the Eastern Celestial Realm then?" Everyone was surprised. Xie Yangbing was trying to force an abdication in full public now. His purpose was clear, and that was to eject Ling Han from his seat so that he himself could replace him. This was really ruthless. He was just a single person, and he wanted to conquer the holy land of alchemy of the Eastern Celestial Realm on his own. However, he was a 4-star Grandmaster, and with the background of the Ancient Alchemy Tower added into the equation, he did indeed have the right to act so arrogantly. Ling Han smiled faintly. "I heard that your father is constantly away from home. Would your mother feel lonely and cold? Instantly, Xie Yangbing's expression twisted in fury. My father is not home. What business is that of yours? You actually dare imply that my mother is having an illicit affair? Damn it, damn you. Yet everyone broke into laughter. This was very simple. Since Xie Yangbing did not want others to interfere in his own family business, what right did he have to interfere in the affairs of others? Was there any need for an outsider to criticize or give orders about Alchemist City? Moreover, though Ling Han was absent, there was still Grandmaster Zicheng who was helping him take care of matters, and everything was organized and systematic. Xie Yangbing, you are really just being a busybody. Ling Han, you have gone too far. Xie Yangbing calmed down. He could not just go with Ling Han's flow and lose control of himself. Ling Han smiled slightly. Because you came, we treated you as a guest and did not chase you out. However, if you are so determined to speak poorly, I shall oblige you. He paused and then called out, Come, please expel this big-mouth Xie from here. Pooh! Hearing the nickname that Ling Han had given him, quite a number of people spluttered in laughter. 2 guards walked toward Xie Yangbing, and when they were close enough, they said, Young Master Xie, this way, please. Who dares? A cold, eerie voice rang out, and an elder had suddenly appeared behind Xie Yangbing. His hair was white, but his features were young, his face rosy, and complexion shockingly smooth and bright. He waved his hand slightly. Pung! Pung! Those 2 guards were instantly sent flying. Thankfully, he observed propriety and merely sent them backwards and did not wound the 2 of them. With such an aggressive move, everyone stood up once more, looking at him angrily. The elder smirked coldly. Boom! His incredibly frightening aura surged out madly. Ascending origin tier, consummate level. When they sensed this aura, everyone's expressions changed. This was too terrifying. He was a consummate level ascending origin tier, invincible against anyone beneath the celestial king tier. Though there were many hidden talents in Alchemist City, they definitely did not have any celestial kings, and while there was indeed a considerable number of ascending origin tiers, the number that had reached the consummate level could be counted on a single hand. How do I address you, sir? An elder stood up. He was the clan leader of a noble clan of the Alchemist City, the Lu clan, with cultivation level of consummate level ascending origin tier. Qian Wui, the first elder replied proudly. What is it? Are you planning to step out? The clan leader of the Lu clan smirked coldly. The cultivation and alchemy fields of Alchemist City shared both honor and shame. Hence, he stepped out at the first instant. He shook his head. I just wish to protect the order of Alchemist City. I forbid anyone from being insolent here. When he said the word insolent, he had already charged out, surging towards Qianwui. Trash of Eastern celestial realm. Qianwui smirked coldly. His figure advanced suddenly as he sent out a palm strike. Pung! The terrifying aura shook the heavens and earth. The 2 elites immediately brought their battle into the skies. Boom, boom, boom. Light exploded, illuminating the skies. Everyone could not see clearly. They could only see endless light flashing in the skies, while their ears heard enormous blasts. But they had completely no idea how the battle was progressing, and who had the upper hand. They were really too far from this level. The Empress only glanced, and then said, He's going to lose. Ling Han nodded. He knew that the Empress was talking about the clan leader of the Lu clan. Though that person was also a consummate level ascending origin tier, his aptitude was ordinary, but Qianwui was a king tier. A king tier could be invincible against an opponent of the same cultivation level, and though ascending origin tier was not that impressive, in circumstances where both fighters were of the same cultivation level, the king tier would definitely have a tremendous advantage. As expected, it was only about 100 moves, and a figure was seen falling from the skies. With a thud, he landed heavily on the ground, creating a deep hole from the impact. Who was it? There was no need to check because Qian Wui had already shot down from the skies, landing steadily on the ground. Then the person who had been struck down definitely had to be the clan leader of the Lu clan. You can't even last a single blow. Qian Wui scoffed. He had blocked about 100 strikes, and it naturally was not that he could not last a single blow. But Qian Wui was the victor. Was there any significance in refuting this point? Dead silence fell. Though this was Alchemy City, they similarly respected elites. Qian Wui naturally was this kind of elite. This was very domineering. One used his strength as a suppression tactic, while the other exhibited unmatched standards in alchemy, and added with the fame of the ancient alchemy tower, it was indeed possible that the master of Alchemy City could be replaced overnight. Grand Master Zi Cheng's expression involuntarily changed. He indeed had confidence in Ling Han's strength in alchemy, but someone was already hostile right on their doorstep, so it was natural that he could not just sit by idly and watch. Master. Yet Ling Han placed a hand on his shoulder. Let me. How could this kind of trifling matter need to trouble his master? Ling Han stated evenly, Xie Yongbing, what do you want to do? Compete with me in alchemy, and if you lose, scram. Xie Yongbing declared very arrogantly. Qian Wui was a consummate level ascending origin tier king tier who could suppress every single elite here all by himself, and added with his skill in alchemy, the two of them could easily occupy the sacred land of alchemy of the Eastern Celestial Realm. Chapter 2401. Ranked number 17? Chapter 2401. Ranked number 17. Ling Han chuckled. Since you wish to seek your own humiliation, I shall oblige. He also had the intention to impose his might, and had thus decided to compete with Xie Yongbing in alchemy. Otherwise, if he moved, even if there were 100 Qian Wui, they would be no match for him. Qian Wui clearly did not have that self-awareness. In his eyes, Ling Han was merely at small accomplishment level of the ascending origin tier. He would be able to defeat him with just a single finger. We shall compete first in the grade of alchemical pill, Xie Yongbing said. All right. Ling Han did not mind. They did not enter into an alchemy chamber. Because Qian Wui did not understand alchemy, Xie Yongbing naturally could not feel reassured. He feared that Ling Han would play some kind of trick inside without anyone watching. Their two cauldrons were simply just set up in an empty space, no more than 9 meters between them. The two of them walked over simultaneously, each taking out their own medicinal ingredients, and began to refine them. They both had just a single chance, and if the cauldron exploded, it would be considered a failure. There were no second chances. Xie Yongbing was very confident. He was an alchemy prodigy and had already become a 4-star grandmaster 30 million years ago. The success rate of concocting a 4-star alchemical pill was as high as 90%. Hence, he deliberately chose to concoct an alchemical pill with a high difficulty level. Ancient King Pill, this was a practically lost alchemical pill. Among 4-star alchemical pills, the difficulty level of concoction caused it to be ranked at number 17. He did not go and check on Ling Han. As long as the latter was also concocting an alchemical pill and was not cheating, that would be enough. Of course, he actually did not fear that Ling Han would take out a ready-made pill, either, because it was practically impossible for its difficulty level to surpass the difficulty level of Ancient King Pill. The two of them began pill concoction. Ling Han quietly activated his time physique so that the time flow over the small area where he himself and Xie Yongbing would be accelerated. Because he had to affect an entire area, Ling Han could only speed up the flow of time 100 times, or the burden on him would be too high. Only over a day had passed in the outside world, and Ling Han and Xie Yongbing were both done. Their pills were completed. The acceleration of time was quietly dispelled. Because Xie Yongbing had been focused on pill concoction, he did not notice this fact at all. He proudly held the alchemical pill that he had just concocted and declared, I have refined a 4-star alchemical pill, the Ancient King Pill. Among 4-star alchemical pills, its difficulty of concoction can be ranked in the 17th place. Grandmaster Zi Cheng, Grandmaster Heavenly Heart, Grandmaster Chu Yi all nodded respectively, proving that Xie Yongbing had spoken the truth. When it involved alchemy, there was absolutely no way that they would be prejudiced and neglect justice. Having gained the approval of 3 grandmasters, Xie Yongbing was even prouder, thinking that he would definitely be winning. He looked towards Qian Wui again, but saw that Qian Wui was wearing a strange expression. He did not know it, but Qian Wui was clear that Ling Han had used time acceleration. Someone who was versed in the regulations of time was practically invincible before Celestial King Tier. It could be claimed that he would be invincible in a battle of equal levels. He should be able to suppress Ling Han, right? Qian Wui thought. He had a superior lead of 2 minor levels, and also had the aptitude of a King Tier. No matter how heaven-defying the regulations of time was, there was no way that it could help Ling Han to breach the gap of 2 minor levels of the ascending origin tier. With this in mind, his confidence returned. Ling Han also handed over the alchemical pill in his hands and said, 6 Suns Green Spirit Pill, 4-star alchemical pill. He did not continue the introduction, because even he did not know the difficulty level of concocting the 6 Suns Green Spirit Pill. He had come up with it on his own with his own studies of the alchemical pill that he had obtained in the treasure chamber. The difficulty level of pill concoction was extremely high. 6 Suns Green Spirit Pill. Grandmaster Zi Cheng and the others all looked blank. It was as if they had never heard of this 4-star alchemical pill. Xie Yongbing also scoffed. This brat had concocted an alchemical pill that no one even knew about, and he wanted to lie his way out? TSK, it might not even be 4 stars at all. Wait. Grandmaster Heavenly Heart suddenly stood up. I might have seen it before in an ancient book. You guys just wait. I'll come back in a short while. Shoo, he left. Thankfully, the speed of ascending origin tier was very high. In just a short while, he had already run back like a gust of wind, and there was indeed an ancient book in his hands. Grandmaster Zi Cheng and Grandmaster Chu both leaned their heads closer, and after reading for a while, they both looked stunned. 6 Suns Green Spirit Pill. Among ancient pill recipes, the difficulty level of concoction is placed 19th. Grandmaster Heavenly Heart read out loud. It was actually as high as 19th place. Xie Yongbing was slightly surprised, but so what if it was 19th place? His Ancient King Pill was ranked 17T. Hold on, wasn't it the 9 Cauldron Phoenix Return Pill that was ranked 19th? Never mind, forget it. It was fine as long as he won. His expression was filled with pride, and as his eyes swept over Grandmaster Zi Cheng and the others, his gaze was urging them. Aren't you guys going to announce the results yet? Grandmaster Zi Cheng opened his mouth and said, Everyone should be aware that in the inheritance of pill recipes, there are a great many that have disappeared or were lost in time. Everyone nodded. That was not the case for just alchemy. It was the same for cultivation as well. Still, what do you mean by saying these words? Grandmaster Zi Cheng continued, The Ancient King Pill is ranked 17th in terms of difficulty level of pill concoction, and this is the ranking among the pill recipes that we presently possess, but in the complete collection of ancient pill recipes. He paused, and realization dawned on them. There were too many pill recipes that had been lost now, and they naturally had been removed, so that what originally should be 30th in terms of difficulty level had now become 25th or even 20th. Xie Yongbing's body also trembled. He only had a grasp of an advantage of 2 places, as long as there were more than 2 pill recipes that were lost before that. Ling Han would turn the tables around and surpass him instead. Grandmaster Zi Cheng smiled and continued, In the rankings of ancient pill recipes, the 6 Suns Green Spirit Pill is ranked 19th, and the Ancient King Pill is 32nd. Fuck, there was such a wide gap. Everyone was in an uproar, and at the same time was extremely excited. It was still their chairperson that was more skilled and more awesome. Xie Yangbing's face turned pale, but he immediately shouted, "You must have conspired to try and deceive me." Grandmaster Zi Cheng smiled slightly and tossed the ancient book in his hands over to Xie Yangbing. "Do not even dream of destroying the ancient book. The three of us have read it, and we naturally have our own conclusions." Xie Yangbing hurriedly ruffled through the pages, and when he swept his gaze over the page, his expression was ashen. Indeed, Grandmaster Zi Cheng had not lied. His first reaction was to destroy the book and then vehemently deny it. But Grandmaster Zi Cheng had already stated clearly before. So what if he denied their judgment? The three of them were judges here. Xie Yangbing took a deep breath, calming his emotions. He had not lost completely. He did not believe that he would lose to Ling Han in the area of spirit refinement. "Fine, we'll compete again in spirit refinement," Xie Yangbing declared loudly. "Sure." Ling Han made a gesture of invitation. The two of them continued pill concoction, and it was still that alchemical pill from previously. First refinement, second refinement, third refinement. To become a 4-star Grandmaster, one should be able to do 5th refinement at least. There was no doubt about that. Hence, before 5th refinement, Xie Yangbing did not even cast a glance at Ling Han. It was right until it was after 5th refinement that he finally stared at Ling Han out of the corner of his eyes. 6th refinement, 7th refinement. Everyone couldn't help but become nervous. This was a 7th refinement Grandmaster. This had already reached Grandmaster Zi Cheng's level. However, neither of them stopped, and both began their 8th refinement. At this moment, even Xie Yangbing looked nervous. He indeed could attain 8th refinement, but he could not guarantee that every attempt would be successful. In fact, the chances of failure were considerably high. He had to be extremely careful and very cautious. The process of spirit refinement could be sped up, and a day later, both of them stopped. A hint of joy appeared in Xie Yangbing's expression. He had succeeded. However, when his eyes passed over Ling Han, his expression immediately became extremely ugly. Ling Han had also completed 8th refinement. Chapter 2402, Complete Victory. Chapter 2402, Complete Victory. Xie Yangbing knew that his strength was limited to the 8th refinement. If he proceeded to do the 9th refinement, the only path before him would definitely be failure, and the alchemical pill would explode. If their accomplishments in spirit refinement were equal, then Ling Han would be able to defeat him with the difficulty level of concoction of the alchemical pill. He still held a sliver of hope, and that was his skill in spirit refinement surpassed Ling Han. But very soon he paled in shock because Ling Han had not stopped, but rather continued spirit refinement. The 9th refinement. Xie Yangbing could not believe it. Ling Han was actually capable of 9th refinement. No, there was no way he could succeed. Xie Yangbing thought fervently. If he forcefully attempted 9th refinement, it would only result in the pill exploding. In that case, his victory was assured. Haha, not bad, not bad. He withdrew his hands and stood watching from the sidelines. Meanwhile, Ling Han began the 9th refinement, and with the time acceleration effects, a day passed in the snap of a finger. He finished and stood up, and did not continue with the 10th refinement. In any case, he was definitely winning, and had fully established the image of his invincible might in the hearts of the residents of Alchemy City. Chairperson is mighty. Chairperson is imperious. Chairperson is invincible. Everyone cheered. Ling Han had an absolutely crushing advantage over his opponent. Furthermore, what kind of concept was the 9th refinement? One more step further, and Ling Han would be capable of becoming a 5-star Grandmaster. This was far too astonishing. Xie Yangbing was completely dejected. He had actually lost to Ling Han, someone who was even younger than him. Meanwhile, Qian Wui revealed his killing intent. No matter how strong Ling Han was in alchemy, so what? This was a world of cultivators after all. As long as he got rid of Ling Han, Xie Yangbing could still ascend to the position of chairperson. He was just about to make his move when he saw that Ling Han actually just happened to cast a glance at him. "Don't court death." Ling Han stated calmly, a flash of killing intent flickering in his eyes. Qian Wui felt a chill that caused all the bones in his body to feel like they were frozen. This glance, this killing intent, was really too terrifying, making him feel like he was facing an invincible celestial king. However, he immediately pepped himself up. Ling Han was just a mere small accomplishment ascending origin tier, so how could he be a match for him? Even if the other party had a grasp of regulations of time, so what? With a gap of 2 minor levels, how could that possibly affect him? On the other hand, as long as he flooded the whole area with the power of regulation, Ling Han would not be able to draw on the regulations of time. So even if the regulations of time was supreme over all other regulations, so what? He instantly became more daring, and his right hand's fingers formed claws. The power of regulation was gathering. It was one thing if he did not make a move, but if he did, it would be a powerful strike. He was planning to kill Ling Han in a single stroke. Ling Han smirked coldly. He was naturally able to discover Qian Wui's dirty trick. This old wretch was really seeking his own death. "Young man, you are too arrogant." Qian Wui moved aggressively. Boom! Endless fiery waves spread out as he laughed loudly. His right hand seemed to have formed the claws of a giant beast from the primitive era as he grabbed out at Ling Han. Not good. Grandmaster Ziqing and the others all stood up. Ling Han's skill in alchemy was practically off the charts, but his cultivation level was only at the small accomplishment level of the ascending origin tier. The gap between him and Qian Wui was really too wide. And this was a sudden strike from Qian Wui at that, and also a powerful move that he had planned long in advance. How could it not be extremely strong and powerful? Ling Han merely smiled faintly as his right hand balled into a fist. Frightening physical power built up. This was the most basic power of a Genesis world, and was superior to regulations. Though he could not use it directly, and could only use it in the form of brute force, it was already enough. Boom! He brandished his fist and struck out at Qian Wui. Pum! Ling Han's fist was like a hot knife cutting through butter. Qian Wui's massive claws shattered at the first contact, which also caused Qian Wui to grunt lowly. His right hand was covered entirely with blood. However, Ling Han's fist did not look like it was going to stop, and was still flying towards Qian Wui. It was as if even if there was a great star ahead, it would still be turned into dust by the force of this punch. Qian Wui's expression changed drastically. He finally knew that the previous feeling of terror that he had experienced was not a misconception, but rather that this young man was truly terrifyingly strong. He hurriedly bounced back in retreat, but how could he possibly be Ling Han's match in terms of explosive power? Ling Han caught up with him and sent out his fists in a barrage of punches. Pung, 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 pung. It was just a mere 3 punches, and Qian Wui's shield of defensive origin power crumbled completely. Then, Qian Wui could only throw up blood as he was entirely and forcefully pummeled into mush. Actually, Ling Han was very good-tempered. As long as no one trifled with him, he would also be very amicable, but if anyone dared to trifle with him, he would also retaliate and beat him to the point of throwing up blood and breaking bones. And since Qian Wui wanted to kill him, he naturally could only pay him back. Everyone was grabbing their heads in shock. Just what had they witnessed? A consummate-level ascending origin tier elite had actually been beaten to death by a barrage of punches from Ling Han. Fuck! Who could believe this? But only an instant later, everyone erupted in a tsunami wave of cheering. Too strong! Their chairperson was truly too strong. His natural talent in alchemy was unmatched, and he was about to advance into the ranks of 5-star grandmasters, and his strength in cultivation was also world-shaking. He had beaten a great consummate-level ascending origin tier until the latter burst with just a few punches. This was practically comparable to a celestial king's power. Ling Han turned to look at Xie Yongbing, a faint smile curling up the corners of his lips. Xie Yongbing was completely dejected, and his expression was ashen. How could there be such a freak in this world, reaching heights that others could not even look up to in both cultivation and alchemy? However, why was the other's gaze so frightening? Ling Han laughed. Since you like this place so much, you should just stay here from now onwards and concoct alchemical pills for me every day. Xie Yongbing couldn't help but nod. Though Ling Han was smiling, he could only feel an endless chill. If he said one word in refusal, he would probably be pulverized instantly. Ling Han patted Xie Yongbing's shoulder. That's right. Since we are kindred spirits, we should help each other. Xie Yongbing forced a grin, yet it looked even worse than a smile. He was nodding repeatedly, yet was cursing Ling Han violently in his mind. If he was strong enough, he would definitely destroy Ling Han. Ling Han's words suddenly changed. Right? Exactly why have so many waves of your people come here? Nothing much. We just wanted to expand our territory, Xie Yongbing quickly answered. Ling Han patted his shoulder again. Misbehaving again. There were indeed some gains to be had in the eastern celestial realm, but it could not compare to the western celestial realm at all. Furthermore, the boundless seas separated them, and the journey to and forth was extremely inconvenient unless they were planning to permanently settle here. Even if Xie Yongbing conquered Alchemy City, he would be very soon overthrown. Xie Yongbing continued to shake his head. We really just wanted to rake in some treasures and resources. Ling Han cracked a grin. Looks like I can only search your soul. Xie Yongbing instantly paled in shock. With a soul search, not only would he reveal all the secrets of his lifetime, it would also endanger his life, or he would basically become a retard. Don't make me wait too long, Ling Han stated. Xie Yongbing hesitated for a while, and then finally replied, It is rumored that there is an ancient pill recipe hidden somewhere in Alchemy City. What ancient pill recipe? Ling Han asked. It's called the Celestial King Pill, Xie Yongbing immediately revealed without any further hesitation. Celestial King Pill? Ling Han asked smilingly, could it be that one would directly become a celestial king after consuming it? That's right. Unexpectedly, Xie Yongbing really nodded. At this, even Ling Han became solemn. There actually was such an amazing alchemical pill in this world that consuming one would allow one to directly leap into celestial king tier. No wonder there were still people endlessly coming here from the western celestial realm, even with how high their standards of alchemy were. The value of this pill recipe was really too high. Chapter 2403, Celestial King Pill. Chapter 2403, Celestial King Pill. Ling Han believed that this kind of alchemical pill would definitely have great restrictions after consuming it, whether it was restrictions on the user's cultivation level or future advancements. To say that it had absolutely no disadvantages was too illogical. Oh, so you have come to find this pill recipe? Ling Han nodded. Come, tell me what information you have gotten. Xie Yongbing stuttered, but still revealed the information that they had obtained, fearing that he would irritate Ling Han and have his soul searched. The latter did not fear his background of the ancient alchemy tower at all. Having heard his words, Ling Han couldn't help but shake his head. What Xie Yongbing knew was actually not much of a secret in ancient alchemy tower, but most people would not believe this myth. How could such an amazing alchemical pill possibly exist? But there was also a minority that believed it, and did not hesitate to journey all the way over the seas to come here. Ling Han dismissed Xie Yongbing, and told him that he could only leave after he had concocted alchemical pills for a total of 1,000,000 years in Alchemy City. When he told the matter of the Celestial King Pill to Grandmaster Zicheng, the latter's expression was also a little strange. "I have indeed heard of the Celestial King Pill before. It is rumored that it had been created by our founder in his later years, but it was also because he had created this pill recipe that he was targeted by the heaven and earth, and had thus died in the heavenly tribulation. But this has always just been a legend, and has never been believed. As it turned out, this was no secret in Alchemy City either. It was just that no one had chosen to believe it. There's no smoke without fire. Perhaps there really is some truth," Ling Han murmured. He was very concerned about this matter. If it could directly advance one to Celestial King tier, then Lu Yutong, Li Xichan, and even his parents could become Celestial Kings. Then, as long as the heaven and earth was not destroyed, there was no need to worry that they would be killed by the immortals' tribulation. He researched carefully. The information given by Xie Yongbing was very vague. This was also very normal. If the location had been clearly pointed out, there would have been no need for him to come and attempt to become the chairperson of Alchemy City. He could have instead chosen to just take the pill recipe and leave. It was precisely because he did not have many clues that Xie Yongbing needed to grasp authority and mobilize all the residents of Alchemy City to conduct a search. With a command from Ling Han, the whole Alchemy City was mobilized and began searching for this pill recipe. 3 months later, there was more and more information about the ancient era that Ling Han had grasp of. Initially, this was just scattered bits, and with them alone, nothing strange could be perceived. But when they were pieced together, a conclusion came to light. Alchemy City has been rebuilt before. Ling Han, Hunyao, and the other women arrived at a group of buildings. In the past, there used to be a temple here, but with the ages, the temple has been razed to the ground, and new buildings were built on its original site. Lord Chairperson. Their arrival alerted someone in the building, and he hurriedly came out to greet him. Ling Han smiled. We plan to dismantle this place, but we promise that we will rebuild it for you. Also, here is some compensation." He handed a spatial god tool over to the other. The owner's expression was filled with joy. "Since Lord Chairperson likes it, just dismantle it as you like. There is no need for any compensation. Isn't it just a few buildings? It's no big deal." As long as they could develop some relations with Ling Han, wouldn't he just be able to do as he liked in Alchemy City? Ling Han shook his head. Things should be perfectly clear-cut. Seeing that Ling Han was slightly displeased now, the owner could only take the spatial god tool. Ling Han moved, and the entire structure was destroyed. Then he dug 3 feet into the ground, and indeed, the ruins of an ancient structure were discovered underground. They excavated the whole ruins and removed the dirt bit by bit. As they hammered the tiles and smashed the pillars, they searched thoroughly. The whole group was made up of great elites, so their speed was naturally fast. In merely slightly half a day's time, they discovered a spatial god tool inside a rock. It should have been stuffed in. The rock just happened to have a natural crack, and if one did not deliberately observe, it would be very easily missed. Ling Han extended his divine sense within, and saw that there were some alchemical pills inside, but there were not many. Furthermore, the spatial god tool itself did not have preservation effects. Who knew how many years had already passed, and these alchemical pills were all already expired. Aside from this, there was a tiny bookshelf, and there were multiple books placed on the shelf. Ling Han carefully took them out. Because these books had also experienced too many years, the paper would crumble at the slightest touch. He used both regulations of time and space and flipped through the pages lightly. If anything really happened, Ling Han had enough time to make repairs with how the flow of time had slowed down. These were all pill recipes. One book recorded a single pill recipe, and they were all 5 stars at that. Ling Han memorized them one by one. These books really could only be flipped through once, because they would turn into dust after they were flipped through. When he reached the 11th book, Ling Han's eyes lit up. Celestial King Pill. It really existed, he thought, and hurriedly flipped through the book with even greater care. After reading, the entire book turned into dust, and Ling Han exhaled lightly. If the introduction of the pill recipe was true, the Celestial King Pill could indeed help one become a Celestial King. But there was a prerequisite: he had to have reached the peak stage consummate level of the ascending origin tier. This had only saved one from having to go through the celestial path. Of course, it was possible that only a single person out of 10,000 ascending origin tiers that went into the celestial path could become a Celestial King. In fact, it might not even be one. And the ingredients used to concoct the Celestial King Pill. Ling Han thought for a while and couldn't help but gape. There was only one word for it: wasteful. This was really wasteful. Not only did it require an astonishing amount of Celestial King tier great herbs, it even needed celestial seeds. Celestial seeds could only appear on the celestial path, and those who walked the celestial path would gather the incomplete celestial seeds, fuse them into their bodies, and piece them together bit by bit, which ultimately would become a complete celestial seed. Once the celestial seed was formed completely, one could then advance into Celestial King tier. But the process of forming the celestial seed was too difficult and too dangerous, as they would be targeted by the heaven and earth. They would also be seen as prey by ferocious wild beasts. It was like the incomplete celestial seed was a human-shaped great herb and could be refined. Of course, what was the most dangerous was still their competitors. As long as they had not yet become a Celestial King, the celestial seed could be snatched by others. And to concoct the Celestial King Pill, a complete celestial seed could not be lacking. Hence, the price was too exorbitant. The price of concocting a single pill was enough to help a considerable number of ascending origin tiers advance into Celestial King tier. But the value of the Celestial King Pill lay in the fact that 99% of people who walked the celestial path would fail. But after consuming the Celestial King Pill, it was 100% ensured that one would be able to advance into the Celestial King tier. It was completely worth such a great expense. Ling Han nodded. Actually, it was absolutely impossible for those like Lu Yutong, his parents, and even Feng Piyun and the others to attain Celestial King tier, so they could only achieve it through consuming the Celestial King Pill. I truly anticipate the celestial path opening this time round, Ling Han murmured. He explained the ingredients of the Celestial King Pill, and all the women were dumbfounded. It was really unknown how many people could actually concoct this kind of alchemical pill. Perhaps it would need the help of a heavenly venerate, right? After he returned, Ling Han related the matter of the Celestial King Pill to Grandmaster Zicheng, and naturally wrote down the pill recipe as well. There was no need to keep this secret. Merely the terrifying kind of ingredients required would be enough to stop others in their tracks. Grandmaster Zicheng could only grimace as well. Celestial seeds could not be brought out of the celestial path, which meant that the pill concoction had to be carried out on the celestial path itself. This was practically an impossible feat, because the realm had its own rules. Celestial kings could not enter into the celestial path, and with just the strength of ascending origin tier, how many could one hope to obtain? It was possible that this celestial king would only exist in theory for all eternity. Chapter 2404, Rock Demon King. Chapter 2404, Rock Demon King. After staying a great many days in Alchemy City, Ling Han set out once more, heading towards Separation Resentment City so that he could reunite with his uncle, cousin, and the others. With their present strength, they naturally had a smooth journey. Even if they encountered bad people, the latter would be the ones that would be beaten. Thus, after half a year's time, they arrived at Separation Resentment City. On their journey, Ling Han was also consistently strengthening his level of mastery of 10th refinement, as well as concentrating his attention on his studies of the Celestial King Pill, concocting it in his mind more than 10 million times. Failure definitely could not be accepted. Every single portion of ingredients was too valuable, and a single failure would be an indescribably enormous waste. He had also imposed time effects on himself, so the time of half a year was actually around 500 years or so, allowing his grasp of 10th refinement to become more proficient. More or less, he would only fail once in every 100 attempts. Yet Ling Han was still dissatisfied. His lowest standard was to fail once in every 1,000 times, and the best scenario was to fail once for every 10,000 times. Only then would he refine Celestial King Tier alchemical pills. Celestial King Tier great herbs were really too valuable and rare. He could not afford the waste. After entering Separation Resentment City, they headed directly to the desolate mountains where Yu Jinshan and the others had previously settled down. But when they arrived, they couldn't help but get a shock. That was because a large town had now been built here. It was situated at the foot of the mountains, and there were various magnificent palaces halfway up the mountains and at the peaks. Looks like Yu Zhenshan and the others were developing like wildfire. Ling Han and his group walked towards the town and could see people coming in and out. There were a great many traders and servants, and they were pulling cart after cart of goods out of town. There were also cart after cart of goods being moved into town. Ling Han and his group entering did not draw anyone's attention. Perhaps everyone thought that they, too, were traders. They entered the town. This place was actually exceedingly huge. If this was the ancient realm, it would be comparable to a large city. Roaming around for a while, they arrived at a restaurant. This kind of place was always the most convenient location to get information. As expected after hearing the guests chatting, Ling Han soon found out that Yu Jinshan and the others had indeed gained a bit of a reputation and had built a trade business here, but it was not a very large-scale one. Otherwise, what Ling Han and the others saw when they came would not have been caravans, as they would be completely capable of stowing away the goods in their respective spatial god tools. Once we're done eating, we'll go and visit Uncle and the others. Ling Han and his group left the restaurant, heading up the mountains. The higher-ups here were all residing on the mountains, where there was more abundance of spiritual qi, which was more suited to cultivation. However, while there weren't any restrictions on entering and leaving the town, was it the same in the case of wanting to ascend the mountains? Stop right there. 2 guards immediately stopped Ling Han and his group. This place is the Forbidden Land. Do you all have a permit for entry? Ling Han smiled and shook his head. No. Then please return. This is not a place for sightseeing. One of the guards stated seriously. Ling Han asked, What is it? Have you all occupied the mountains and declared yourselves the rulers? The 2 guards were both a little baffled. Are you stupid? Don't tell me that when you barge into the place of another and are refused entry, you will require the person to show proof that this house belonged to them? Go, go, go. They were no longer in the mood to converse with Ling Han and chased them off directly. Ling Han was only teasing them and said, Please go and inform Yu Jinshan or Yu Kaiyu or Feng Piyin or Morong Qin would do as well, and say that Ling Han has returned. Ling Han! Ling Han! The 2 guards were both stunned. They naturally knew who Ling Han was, but was it this guy in front of them? They both shook their heads. Young man, you have grasped a bit of information and have deliberately come to impersonate him, right? Leave quickly, or when the lords come, you will not be in for anything good. It was mainly because Ling Han's previous attitude had left a poor impression on them, or who knew, they would really have gone to make a report, but now they did not believe him the slightest bit. The women were also laughing delicately. Who asked Ling Han to enjoy speaking cheekily? Now, he was actually being looked down on by several minor characters in the heavenly body tier, and they were even chasing him off. Ling Han shook his head helplessly and could only release a loud cry, his voice rumbling across the sky like thunder, even the heaven and earth paling. He was close to attaining the Celestial King tier and had that kind of strength. Who is it? Who dares to behave impudently in our coiled clouds mountains? Who is the insolent, arrogant man? Countless people leaped down from the many mountains, but none of them could fly. Clearly, not a single one of them was at the severing, mundane tier. They rapidly traversed between the mountains, and soon arrived here, gathering closely around Ling Han. Seeing how there were more women than men in Ling Han's group, with a seriously unbalanced ratio, and when there were a few indescribably exquisite women as well, they felt a kind of dizziness overcome them. They were too beautiful, so they had lost all other thoughts. Their only wish was to just continue looking at them forever. However, there were definitely people with stronger wills among them, and they immediately shouted, "Who are you people? Why are you behaving with such impudence here?" Ling Han smiled. "My name is Ling Han. I have come to visit old friends." When everyone heard this, they were all doubtful. They had already heard a great many times the story of Ling Han and admired him very much as well. But in their hearts, tens of thousands of years had already passed. So even if Ling Han returned, he would look like a middle-aged man. This man in front of them was younger than the majority of them. How could he possibly be Ling Han? "You actually dare impersonate Lord Ling Han!" quite a number of people exclaimed menacingly. In their hearts and eyes, Ling Han was a god that could not condone the slightest blasphemy. Immediately, one of the quick-tempered people moved, stabbing out with a spear that moved like a silver viper. Ling Han casually grabbed the long spear and smilingly asked, "Why is it just you youngsters here? Where are the lords?" "The lords are presently discussing a serious matter, Wu," someone who was more honest truly explained, and as a result, one of the others naturally covered his mouth. Ling Han gave an "oh." No wonder he had not seen Feng Piyun and the others come out. As it turned out, they were occupied by something. It looked like what they were discussing was something very serious at that. Otherwise, they would have at least sent a few severing, mundane tears here, right? "We attack together," a young man called out. He seemed to have great authority, as with a single command from him, they all made their moves. Ling Han pressed down a hand casually, and the regulations of space surged. Everyone was bound. They still maintained the posture of preparing to attack, but could not move the slightest bit. They were stunned. Who exactly was this? He was too powerful. He was just one person, and they were all completely restrained just with him pressing down a hand casually. Roar! A roar rang out, and waves of dust appeared in the mountains, rapidly extending towards here. "It is Lord Rock Demon King!" someone immediately exclaimed in pleased surprise. Ling Han had only restricted their ability to move, but had not prevented them from speaking. "Haha! Lord Rock Demon King would definitely beat him to tears. Just wait, and you'll be crying soon." The young men were all filled with anticipation. In their hearts and eyes, the Rock Demon King was practically invincible. The dust and dirt rolled out in waves, and a stone figure was also revealed. He was rushing forth at an astonishing speed. Closer. Some young people couldn't help but look shocked, because the Rock Demon King did not look like he was going to slow down at all. From the look of things, he was going to make a move on Ling Han directly, but they were still there. If the Rock Demon King crashed into them, they would definitely be turned into blood and mush. Ling Han smiled, and with a flip of his hand, the people that were stuck between them were immediately separated like waves, providing an obstruction-free passageway for the rock golem. Pum! The rock golem suddenly crashed towards him, and everyone could feel the ground releasing a moan. This collision was really domineering and powerful. After this blow, this brat must be done for. Chapter 2405, Recruitment. Chapter 2405, Recruitment. Everyone was certain that Ling Han would definitely be done for with a collision like that. But when they looked again, their eyeballs almost popped out in their shock. Not only was Ling Han completely unwounded at all, Lord Rock Demon King had actually taken the form of a puppy that was jumping and hopping around this man. Phut! 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 That was Lord Rock Demon King, a being that even Lord Fong and Lord Murong respected extremely. Furthermore, for it to be able to claim the title of Demon King, it was clear how terrifying the Rock Demon King's temper could be. Now, it had actually taken the form of a puppy acting cute and wanting to be doted on. This was practically destroying all their perspectives. They had surely seen wrongly. All this had to be an illusion. They looked again, and now it was even more fun. A small beast had popped out of who knew where, standing on its hind legs. Its hind legs were tough and strong, but its forelegs were extremely short and tiny, with claws curled up in front of the chest, looking like a human. But the small beast was very fierce, as it tore and bit at Lord Rock Demon King. Not good. Lord Rock Demon King had been thrown down. Its mighty physique was for nothing, as it had still been pushed down onto the ground by the small beast. The small beast was now jumping around on Lord Rock Demon King's body. Bang, bang, bang. With every leap, the ground would tremble, showing how frightening the small beast's power was. Everyone's face was ashen. If it was them being stomped on by the little beast, wouldn't their intestines be stomped out as well? Ling Han laughed and said, all right. This is Small Rock, this is Little Terror, and you are family. Though Little Terror had yet to reach its strongest state, it had already recovered to the peak stage of the fourth severance, and was a creature that could become an emperor tier, so its battle prowess was naturally frightening. It easily managed to defeat the stone golem. Ling Han looked back at Small Rock. You've been slacking off, haven't you? Tens of thousands of years have passed. So why haven't you advanced into the dividing soul tier yet? Woof! The rock spirit imitated the barking of a dog as it crouched by Ling Han's feet, looking plaintive. If it cultivated on its own, even if it could advance into the dividing soul tier, that would have to be several tens of billions of years later. A short few tens of thousands of years was not much at all. Furthermore, Master, you didn't give me any rock essence, so how could I be able to grow? All right, I'll give you some. Ling Han scattered casually, and it was all the jade spirits. For the rock spirit, this was definitely comparable to celestial medicines. The rock spirit's eyes shone, and it started hurriedly grabbing these jade stones, while an expression of vigilance stayed on its face. It would definitely fight anyone who dared to approach now. Meanwhile, Little Terror looked on with disdain. Those were just a few stupid stones. Was there any need to value them so much? Come, take me to Big Brother and the others. Ling Han patted the rock golem. The rock spirit nodded quickly, leading the way ahead. Everyone was stunned silly. Who had ever seen Lord Rock Demon King so well-behaved and obedient? There was only one possibility. Ling Han, that lord that existed in legends, had finally returned. The rock spirit led the way, and they arrived at a mountain peak. A dazzling palace was built on the summit. There were guards at the doors, but when they saw the rock spirit leading the way, they were involuntarily surprised. Who did not know that this was an important place, and only the most important people were allowed entry? Though Lord Rock Demon King was indeed qualified, what was the meaning of bringing along so many people with it? Ling Han opened his mouth and called out, Big Brother Fong, Third Brother Morong, Uncle, I'm back. Xiao. Suddenly, figures shot out of the palace one after another. Fourth brother. Ling Han. Master. A considerable number of people pounced towards them. Meanwhile, Yu Zhenshan looked towards Yu Hongchang. As the siblings reunited, they naturally had much to talk about. The Azura Demon Emperor definitely had the most exaggerated expression, looking as if he had seen his father. He had grabbed hold of Ling Han's leg and was not letting go. This was a great opportunity to show his loyalty. Immediately, a feast was laid out to welcome Ling Han and his group, with a command from Feng Piyun. After exchanging conventional pleasantries, Ling Han finally asked, What are you guys discussing? Have you met with some kind of trouble? Yu Zhenshan nodded. We have encountered some trouble, but since you are back, everything will definitely be fine. As it turned out, Their development was optimistic and looked like they would be growing bigger and bigger. Thus, one of the forces in the city extended an olive branch to them, wanting to take them under their own authority. Feng Piyun and the others were discussing whether they should accept this invitation. Once they accepted, their overall safety would be greatly improved because they could raise the banner of that clan. But there was also a disadvantage, and that was they had to hand over a great portion of their profits. Furthermore, while that force was recruiting them, they had not forgotten to issue threats, either. If the time came for their reply, and the reply from Feng Piyun and the others was refusal, that would very likely be the instant that they would be eliminated. Ling Han smiled faintly. No need to give them any regard. The strongest elite in Separation Resentment City was only at the Immortal Palace tier. He would be able to settle the matter with a single finger. Everyone felt a blind confidence in Ling Han. Since Ling Han said there was no need for any regard, he definitely had absolute confidence. Immediately, they let go of their worries and began to drink to their heart's content. It was inevitable that Feng Piyun and Morongqing would ask about the Rain Emperor. Ling Han had returned, but they had not seen the Rain Emperor, so they were concerned about him. Ling Han laughed loudly. Second brother is now exceedingly powerful. He has long since advanced into the ascending origin tier and has become a monarch star at that. Everyone knew what ascending origin tier was, but did not know what monarch star meant, so they all asked curiously. Ling Han took the chance to fill them in, but did not speak of the matter of the realm war. This was too far away from them. In any case, they would not be of much help, either, so they should just enjoy their lives here. He took out a great amount of alchemical pills, which he bestowed on them, and at the end, everyone was no longer drinking. Instead, they were all listening to Ling Han's teachings. Limited by their individual aptitude as well as resources, not one person here had managed to advance into the dividing soul tier, so there was naturally no fifth severance, either. That would be unrealistic. Even if Ling Han was the alchemy emperor, there was no way he could help everyone reach the heavens in a single bound. In cultivation, one could ultimately only depend on oneself. Ling Han studied them, and there were but a limited few that could break through to the dividing soul tier. They all needed to expend an ocean of resources. Under normal circumstances, they were completely able to nurture a few dozen, or even over 100 dividing soul tier elites. Yet Ling Han was unconcerned. What did he want so many resources for? It was natural that he should spend them on his family and friends. A few days later, the deadline given for Feng Piyun and the others to reply had arrived. That was a noble clan of Separation Resentment City, the Qin clan. The ancestor of the Qin clan was a heaven soul elite. If he could take one step further, he would have a say even in Separation Resentment City. Unfortunately, taking this step was as difficult as ascending the heavens. Who knew how many years had already passed, and the ancestor of the Qin clan was still circling around in the heaven soul tier, and it was possible that there was no hope for him to ever advance into the immortal palace tier at all. He would be slowly consumed by the immortal's tribulation. The Qin clan indeed came punctually. Ling Han had Feng Piyun and the others entertain them. In any case, he was only responsible for fighting. He was presently teaching Little Terror. This little guy was a creation of the foreign realm, and could be considered naturally gifted in the foreign realm, being strong from birth. However, after arriving in the celestial realm, it had to start back from the beginning, and its advancement was exceedingly slow. Thankfully, Little Terror was built differently. It did not need to go to any natural mystery realms for breaking through. As long as its power advanced, it would naturally be able to break through. In fact, it could be said that there was no such thing as cultivation level for it. It could be considered as a smooth, straight line. The stronger it was, the higher its battle prowess, which was unlike cultivators with every advancement to the next cultivation level. Their strength would soar greatly. Little Terror was a natural creation of the foreign realm, and it was highly possible that it possessed the power of heaven and earth of the foreign realm, which had skipped over the level of regulations. Thus, there was naturally no concept of cultivation level for it. This level of being was higher than that. Chapter 2406, Rage of the Qin Clan. Chapter 2406, Rage of the Qin Clan. After Ling Han taught for a while, he let Wally take the stage. On the matter of the power of heaven and earth, it was definitely Wally that was more knowledgeable. Wally was also very interested in Little Terror. After all, a creation of heaven and earth was rare. He did not mind teaching while he himself studied it. Ling Han sat at the side, and he heard the sound of a hand slamming a table after just a short while. He slowly moved to the conference room. As expected, the envoy from the Qin clan bore an indignant expression as he slammed his hand repeatedly on the table. Fine, we gave you face, but since you don't want it, just wait to be destroyed. A total of 2 people came from the Qin clan, and the speaker at present was a middle-aged man in his 30s. He was a first severance, while the other was a young man in his 20s. The latter was sipping tea, looking completely calm and relaxed. When the middle-aged man finished his words, the young man put his teacup down and coughed lightly. "Young master, and please." The middle-aged man hurriedly leaned down, as if he was a servant, expressing goodwill to that young man. Only then did the young man say, "You all should consider carefully. Do you truly wish to reject the magnanimous offer of our Qin clan? Hey, young master and has already spoken. Have you considered carefully? Don't just decide spontaneously." The middle-aged man immediately used young master and as an intimidation tactic as he pointed at them one after another, looking absolutely like a vile character. "This is our final decision," Feng Piyun stated evenly. In the past, he had been a top-tier elite in the small world, so he naturally had his moral integrity and graceful bearing. This was something that a great many people who were stronger than him could not possess. Thus, there was the saying, "Better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven." "You are all a bunch of idiots!" the middle-aged man shouted, wanting nothing more than to run over and strangle them. Meanwhile, the young man merely smiled. "I really would like to see why you people have so much confidence." He stretched out a hand to grab Feng Piyun. The latter was the strongest elite in here, a 4th severance. As long as he could take Feng Piyun down, he would naturally destroy the confidence of everyone here. Feng Piyun humphed lightly and moved to greet the blow. His natural talent was far from those of Ling Han and the Rain Emperor, but in the past he had been able to become a shattering void tier even in the barren lower realm, so he could still be considered a naturally gifted, extraordinary genius. However, because the celestial realm was too big and there were too many geniuses, he was now nothing out of the ordinary. But his battle prowess was considerably strong as well. Furthermore, Ling Han had rushed to improve his battle prowess these last few days. Anything that could be used was used, such as ancestral king blood, high-grade alchemical pills, and so on, and added with time acceleration effects. The increase to his battle prowess was very astonishing. Boom! 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 The 2 clashed, instantly destroying the Great Hall, and then brought their battle to the skies. Now that young master has moved, that person will definitely lose his life. The middle-aged man gave a wisecrack. Young master N, one of the well-known figures of the younger generation of the Qin clan, who was only just a step away from the dividing soul tier. It would not take too long before he would set out to complete his breakthrough. Yet none of those gathered panicked. Even if Feng Piyun was no match, didn't they still have Ling Han? However, in the air, Qin was getting more and more anxious as he fought. He actually had not managed to take his opponent down. This had far surpassed his expectations because he had expected that he would be able to grasp the upper hand completely in 100 moves at most, and would be able to build an absolute advantage within 500 moves. Yet 200 to 300 moves had already been exchanged now, and not only had he not gotten the upper hand, he was being suppressed instead. He could not accept this. As an outstanding descendant of the noble Qin clan, he was actually unable to suppress an unorthodox cultivator. Meanwhile, Feng Piyun was more and more pleased as he fought. Originally, he had not possessed such strong battle prowess. This was all benefits from the rushed improvement that Ling Han had helped him with, allowing his battle prowess to double. At the beginning, he was still unable to adapt to such powerful strength, but after fighting for a long time, he became proficient, completely suppressing Qinin. Pum, pum, pum. Light flashed endlessly in the skies as thunderous booms rang out without stopping. After half a day later, a figure suddenly descended from the skies. The middle-aged man immediately laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha. Young master, and has one young master in? Young master in. After laughing for a while, he only then realized that the person that had dropped down was actually Qin. Hurriedly, he raced over and helped Qin into his feet. Feng Piyun flew down onto the ground. His confidence soared, feeling like he had returned to the small world, where even though the world was huge, he could still act freely and without restraint. Scram! Feng Piyun rebuked. You dare tell us to scram? The middle-aged man felt disbelief. It should be known that the Qin clan had dividing soul-tier elites. So what if you have defeated Qinin? The Qin clan has a lot of other people that can still restrain you. Yet Qin felt that he was shamed and stopped the admonishment from that middle-aged man. He menacingly declared, So it turns out that there are many hidden talents in Coiled Clouds Mountains. Fine, I will admit defeat this time round. He pushed the middle-aged man aside, planning to walk on his own power. Young Masterin! Young Masterin! The middle-aged man hurriedly followed after him. However, he had just taken a step when he realized a man was blocking his way. Involuntarily, he was angered and shouted, Get out of the way! Ling Han smiled slightly. Your mouth is too smelly. I don't think you would remember if you were not taught a lesson. With a wave of his hand, Pa, a slap landed immediately, causing the middle-aged man to turn around a few circles on the spot, spitting out a spray of blood as well as over a dozen broken teeth. Ah! The middle-aged man yowled, and after finally managing to steady himself, he looked at Ling Han and demanded, You dare to strike me? Ling Han was surprised. You haven't learnt the lesson yet. The middle-aged man hurriedly chased after Qinin. He felt absolute fear of Ling Han. The latter had been able to smack him into an idiot with a single strike. There was absolutely no chance he would be Ling Han's match. Meanwhile, Qinin cast a second look at Ling Han and Feng Piyun, and then left without another look backwards. He would definitely be back. Ling Han made no move to stop him. In any case, he would be staying here for a while, so the Qin clan could be just something to help him while away the time. The reaction of the Qin clan was considerably faster and considerably more intense this time round. A mere severing mundane tier force had not just refused their generous offer, but had actually wounded their envoy as well. A day later, the Qin clan sent out a great number of troops, with 2 dividing soul tier elites leading, outfitted with 11 severing mundane tiers, and added with a certain number of Genesis tiers. This team could be considered grand. Young Master Yin, sorry that you have to see this embarrassment. Among this group from the Qin clan, there was an outsider as well, but if Ling Han had spotted him, he would definitely have been able to recognize him with a single look. Fu Gaoyin, descendant of the main line of the Fu clan, the chief authority in Separation Resentment City, as well as the heir of the clan previously. He had been one of the heirs, but now he was the only heir. Hence, the Qin clan naturally treated Fu Gaoyin with extreme respect. Meanwhile, Fu Gaoyin paid them no regard. It just so happened that he had received an invitation to visit the Qin clan, yet coincidentally encountered this matter. On a whim, he thus decided to come and take a look since he was free anyways. He was indeed quite bored. As the noble heir of the Fu clan, he was actually still so sloppy. After so many years, his cultivation level had still increased greatly, reaching the Earth Soul tier, which was extremely impressive. The entire group was aggressive as they charged into the town. They were too strong, their arrogance soaring. All the traders in town found some place to hide, fearing that they would be drawn into the strife. Who is the person in charge here? Get out here! A dividing soul tear of the Qin clan shouted loudly. Feng Puyin, Murong Qing, and Ling Han walked out together. Suddenly, Fu Gaoyun's eyes widened. He rubbed his eyes as if he had seen a ghost. Chapter 2407. Chairperson of Alchemist City. Chapter 2407. Chairperson of Alchemist City. Daring to harm members of our Qin clan. You people are truly outrageously bold, the dividing soul tier elite of the Qin clan stated coldly. Though he was only a young soul, how could that not be enough to suppress mere severing mundane tier? Just average, Ling Han replied, smiling. Humph! Today, young Master Yun is also here. We will give you a chance. Kowtow and beg for forgiveness. Then agree to the conditions that we have previously set, and we will spare your lives, that young soul elite of the Qin clan declared. Otherwise, this town will be pacified, and whether male or female, young or old, everyone will be executed. Execute, execute your head. Fu Gaoyun suddenly flipped out, grabbing hold of that young soul elite and thrashing him immediately. Firstly, he was superior by 2 minor levels, and secondly, he had the aptitude of a king tier. So how could the other party be his match? Thirdly, which was also the most important point, if the young master of the Fu clan wanted to beat anyone up, would the latter dare to dodge? But no one from the Qin clan knew why this young lord had suddenly flipped out. Could it be that he had lost his senses? But young Master Fu was presently at the height of his temper, so who would dare try to play mediator? They were all feeling uneasy, hoping that young Master Fu would quickly stop his rage. Otherwise, what if he did some even stranger actions like asterisk asterisk or something? Who could take that? Brother Ling. After Fu Gaoyun had beaten up that young soul elite of the Qin clan, he was immediately all smiles as he raced towards Ling Han. Oh no, young Master Fu was really quite ill, actually calling someone brother. This was young master of the Fu clan, the heir of a 3-star force, and he actually called a member of a mere severing mundane tier force brother. He was probably so ill that his brain had been burnt out, right? But realization still dawned on some of the smarter ones. They felt like their asterisk TT cheeks were actually trembling, terrified beyond description. Ling Han nodded. You're living quite well, having gotten so many lackeys. Fu Gaoyun was almost scared to death, and hurriedly exclaimed, Brother Ling, don't tease me. How could these be my lackeys? We were just going the same way, and there is absolutely no relation between us at all. He drew a clear, distinct dividing line between them, naturally because of who Ling Han was. Who was Ling Han? Aside from his freakish talent, merely in terms of status, he was the chairperson of Alchemist City. He was the leader of a 4-star force. To say nothing of himself, even if his old man came, he would still have to be very respectful towards Ling Han. It could be claimed that the fact that he had been able to become the only heir, when he had only been one of them, was also because of his relation with Ling Han. Then it was naturally easy for him to take sides. Furthermore, the reason why he had come was indeed because he was too bored. What friendship did he have with the Qin clan? The people of the Qin clan were all dumbfounded. In their eyes, Fu Gaoyun was the greatest big shot in the world. But just in the blink of an eye, this young Master Fu became an obedient child. Their eyeballs were practically about to pop out of their heads in their shock. Just who exactly was this young man? He was a little too terrifying, wasn't he? Fu Gaoyun turned his head and immediately shouted at them fiercely, Get over here and pay your greetings to Brother Ling. Greetings, Brother Ling. Though the members of the Qin clan were still dazed, how could they possibly disregard the words of Fu Gaoyun? They hurriedly lowered their heads and bowed. Merely Fu Gaoyun alone was not someone they could trifle with. What more when Ling Han seemed to have an even more powerful background? Ling Han chuckled. I would not dare presume. Aren't these people here to get revenge? Brotherling, please don't harbor any grievances. Fu Gaoyan hurriedly mediated the strife. If Alchemy City really raged because of this matter, then to say nothing of the fact that Qin clan would be finished, even their Fu clan would not be having a good time, either. Now he could put himself in the shoes of the clan leader of Fu clan to consider problems, or his reaction would definitely have been, "It has nothing to do with me, so why do I need to interfere?" Ling Han looked meaningfully at Fu Gaoyan. They had parted for several tens of thousands of years, and this guy had also grown enough not in cultivation level, but rather mindset. He nodded. Fine then, this matter is considered over and done with. Thank you, Brother Ling. Fu Gaoyan was overjoyed, and then delivered a series of punches and kicks at the members of Qin clan. What are you guys waiting for? Hurry up and thank my Brother Ling. Thank you for your magnanimous generosity, Brother Ling. Everyone hurriedly bowed down again. Ling Han did not like this kind of thing, so let them stand back up with a wave of his hand. Gaoyan, since you are already here, let's have a cup of tea. Ling Han turned and left. Fu Gaoyan agreed, and was just about to walk forwards when he heard the other dividing soul-tier elite of the Qin clan ask, Young Master Yin, who exactly is this Brother Ling? This question also caused a great many members of the Qin clan to prick up their ears. They were too curious. Even Fu Gaoyan would lower his head and bow to this guy, so just how powerful would his background have to be? At first, Fu Gaoyan was planning to ignore them, as these people had almost caused him a heart attack. But upon further thought, to prevent them from causing further trouble, he asked, Do you all know of the Alchemy City? Everyone nodded. As long as they were cultivators, there was no one who did not know of Alchemy City. That was the holy land for all alchemists, and practically every single alchemist would have come from the Alchemy City. Brother Ling is the new chairperson of Alchemy City. Fu Gaoyan threw a bombshell at them. Boom! Every member of the Qin clan was gaping in shock, feeling their heads go numb and a chill take over their whole bodies. As it turned out, Ling Han's background was actually so astonishing. Everyone was terrified. This was the new chairperson of Alchemy City, who had overwhelming authority and power. Still, Ling Han was a little too young, wasn't he? He looked completely like a young brat, so it was hard to believe. But if that wasn't the case, how could Fu Gaoyan need to be so humble in front of him? Everyone was feeling even more anxious. If Ling Han was not willing to let go of the issue, he would only need to say a few words, and it was guaranteed that there would be a lot of people that would come to destroy the Qin clan. Who did not want to curry favor with an alchemist? What more when Ling Han was also the leader of the field of alchemy of the Eastern Celestial Realm? Even celestial kings would probably have to give him some face when they saw him. The members of the Qin clan hurriedly followed them in, begging for Ling Han's forgiveness again. Ling Han was very irritated and tossed them all out. The members of the Qin clan all felt very uneasy and could not calm their emotions no matter what. Meanwhile, Ling Han entertained Fu Gaoyan. The relations between this brat and Ling Han were considered quite amicable. Immediately, he shamelessly called his sister over as well, along with the weirdo Situ Xiaojin. When Fu Xiaoyan saw Ling Han, she first curtsied respectfully, sighing internally. This predestined chance was really missed. Otherwise, if she had expressed true love and affection for Ling Han, who knew, she might have been able to become one of his women. Since Situ Xiaojin was a weirdo, her behavior was naturally out of the norm. She surveyed Ling Han for a while, and then asked curiously, With how many wives you have, where do you find the time? Even if Ling Han was already extraordinarily shameless, he couldn't help but flush when he heard this. This was truly a female hooligan. From the look of things, there was no chance of changing ever. He acted like he had not heard her, and simply toasted cups with Fu Gaoyan and drinking. He stayed for a few days in Separation Resentment City. The higher-ups of the Fu clan all came to pay him a visit one after another, and for Fu Gaoyan's sake, Ling Han also entertained them. However, Yu Zhenshan and the others were not willing to leave with Ling Han to the Western Celestial Realm. They were already accustomed to living here, and even Feng Piyun and Morong Qing already had their respective lovers, and were no longer willing to just roam the world again. Ling Han expressed that he would respect their wishes. Ling Dongxing and his wife also expressed that they would like to stay here. After all, there were people that they knew here, so it could be considered their hometown. Ling Han nodded. There was only one thought in his head now to help his parents and the others reach the peak stage of the ascending origin tier in 30,000 years as much as possible. Then, when he concocted Celestial King pills, everyone could become Celestial Kings, and he could also head to a transcendent dimension without any lingering worries. Chapter 2408, Heaven Forbidden. Chapter 2408, Heaven Forbidden. Ling Han began to conduct special training for everyone. Wally helped. He was particularly skilled in studying the power of heaven and earth, and could avoid some necessary barriers to cultivation level. For example, a severing mundane tier would have to go to a severing mundane-type mystery realm, and dividing soul tier would have to go to other mystery realms. In such a manner, the time of 30,000 years would not be enough for him at all. The opening of mystery realms was not something that was arbitrarily decided by anyone. With Wally helping, they could avoid all this. In any case, Ling Han already owed this guy quite a bit. Furthermore, the former did indeed possess a great many Celestial King tier ingredients, such as the Green Song Divine Sword, Celestial King tier rings, as well as a small piece of divine metal, which was enough to pay off the debt. Thus, Wally was also working very hard in calculations and predictions, looking for a way to avoid these natural mystery realms. This was something that perhaps even heavenly venerates could not do, but it was possible for Wally because he was a creation that a dimension had expended resources gathered for several hundred epochs to create. Definitely the most concentrated essence of it all. True enough, not long later, Wally produced a proposal. This would require the power of heaven and earth to forcefully raise their cultivation levels. The power of heaven and earth was superior to regulations. Ling Han looked at the proposal. Either a heavenly venerate would have to move, helping to guide in some mystical power of heaven and earth, or he would have to use the dimension scroll, absorbing some of the power within to be guided into the body of the recipient. The first method was safe, but where would he find a heavenly venerate to help him out? Though both Wu Lu and Zhou Heng looked highly on him, it did not mean that Ling Han could ask for their help in everything. Moreover, this was not just 1 or 2 times, but would be a great many times. Hence, Ling Han decided to do it himself. He cultivated earnestly, pouring all kinds of resources into himself, and was blazing through ancestral king blood essence like it was worth nothing. 3,000 years later, he had finally done a preliminary tempering of source power. The origin power in his body was practically all converted into source power, but it was not pure. Ascending origin tier, great accomplishment level. Next, he still had to continuously temper source power, as well as extract the source power of heaven and earth for his own use, accumulating the amount of source power at his disposal. Once the doors to great accomplishment level were open, his body art had also further improved, his vitality index soaring all the way to 4,800. Going by the look of things now, there was really a chance that he would possess Celestial King tier battle prowess at consummate level. If this was revealed, there was definitely no one who would believe it. How could an ascending origin tier actually match a Celestial King, even if the latter was the weakest Celestial King? The others' cultivation levels were also spiking madly, with Ling Han, the Alchemy Emperor, endlessly pouring alchemical pills on them, as well as Wally's guidance on knowledge that surpassed this dimension. If their advancement through the cultivation levels was still not fast enough, they would really have to apologize for their failings. Ling Han was very gratified. Even his parents and the others, whose natural talent was only average, were rapidly raising their cultivation levels, but to reach consummate level ascending origin tier within 40,000 years was still difficult. 40,000 years later, he would definitely be leaving. In that case, he could only concoct the Celestial King pill and hand it over to his parents and the others so that they could consume it on their own. He was sure that there should be no problems with the protection of Grandmaster Zicheng and the others. And he had finally concocted the first Celestial King tier alchemical pill, which raised a commotion in the entire Eastern Celestial Realm. How many hundreds of millions of years had it been? Finally, a 5-star Grandmaster had emerged from the Eastern Celestial Realm. Naturally, it was like the entire alchemy city had gone crazy. The whole city was all celebrating, and naturally had to hold a massive banquet to honor this, inviting various important people to participate. Every Celestial King had received an invitation, and most Celestial Kings decided to attend, giving them face. Thai had also received data on Linghan. He was a supreme monarch star, and not only would he definitely become a 9th heaven Celestial King, he could possibly even become a heavenly venerate. Just for the sake of Linghan's potential, the great Celestial Kings would have to make investments for developing a good relationship with him. Hence, when it was time for the grand banquet, a great many Celestial Kings arrived. It was not like how Linghan had ascended to the position of chairperson, when the Celestial King tier forces had only sent a representative. In comparison, it was clear what great changes had taken place in Linghan's present status now. In Alchemy City, everyone was rejoicing. With a chairperson like this, they were naturally feeling extremely proud. Even Xie Yangbing had submitted completely. Linghan was actually a 5-star Grandmaster. This was an existence that even he had to look up to. Perhaps with another epoch he could become a 5-star Grandmaster himself. But that was only a possibility and was also a matter that was too far ahead in the future. There were also some big shots among the Celestial Kings that arrived, such as the Eternal Prosperity Celestial King. He was an 8th heaven Celestial King, and was one of the strongest elites of the 8th heaven Celestial King tier. He had brought Yan Xianlu with him, and made a personal appearance, giving Linghan enough face. Brother Ling. Yan Xianlu was also delighted. Congratulations. Congratulations. Linghan nodded with a smile. He had heard these words in the recent days too much, so much that his ears were practically going numb. What cultivation level are you in now? Can you make the deadline for 30,000 years later? Yan Xianlu asked. Only now was Linghan interested, and he replied, there should be no problem. His main worry was not the advancement through the cultivation levels, but rather the ingredients for concocting the Celestial King pill. Now he had expanded his sources of income, because concocting the Celestial King pill required a frightening amount of resources. Even if he robbed a great many foreign realm ancestral kings of their wealth, it would still not be enough. It could not be helped. There were a lot of things from the foreign realm that could not be used here. With different regulations, different power of heaven and earth, there was too much of a gap. Yan Xianlu looked around the surroundings and then said softly, I've just gotten news. Some people plan to snipe you on the celestial path. Linghan smiled. Oh, really? Celestial kings could not step on the celestial path. So when Linghan reached the consummate level of the ascending origin tier, merely his battle prowess in terms of regulations would be enough to defeat all ascending origin tiers. What more when it was extremely possible that his body art would reach the Celestial King tier. Without Celestial Kings who could match him. Brother Ling, you must not be careless. There are truly some super monsters among these people, who have long since possessed the strength to defeat all ascending origin tiers millions and millions of years ago. However, because the celestial path has not opened yet, they were unable to advance into the Celestial King tier, Yan Xianlu said solemnly. After tempering their strength for so many years, their power is unfathomable. There are a few that even possess some of the power of the Celestial King tier. Instantly, Linghan's interest peaked. Really? Yan Xianlu really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Your opponent is almost heaven-defyingly strong, and you actually look very excited? It should be known that they are targeting you. According to my master, those people can enter a state which is known as heaven forbidden. In the state of heaven forbidden, it would be equivalent to having become celestial kings. There will be no ascending origin tier that will be a match for them, he hurriedly warned. Ling Han was becoming more and more interested. Heaven forbidden. What kind of state is that? I don't know, but only monarch tiers who have reached the peak stage of the consummate level of the ascending origin tier and have settled countless years would be able to grasp heaven forbidden, Yan Xianlu said. With differing natural talent in cultivation, the time period that they can maintain heaven forbidden differs as well. Ling Han gave an "oh," a sliver of a smile on his face, but his fighting spirit was already blazing fiercely. He wanted to battle this kind of opponent. In the younger generation, though Shi Chanzi and Jialan were honored as monarch stars, there was no way they could enter into the state of heaven forbidden, because of the time they had to settle. However, Ji Wuming definitely could. That was because he was the reincarnation of the strongest ninth heaven celestial king, so he had to have grasped the state. Ling Han could battle with Ji Wuming again. Ling Han's blood bubbled fervently. Throughout his journey, only Ji Wuming could give him extreme pressure, and he valued this opponent very much as well. Yan Xianlu could only remain silent. His original intention had been to warn Ling Han, but he had forgotten that this guy was the type to hunger for battle. Cheng Zixin, Fu Zhou, and the other monarch tiers also arrived gradually. Coincidentally, they had originally been in the Saintly Origin Academy and just happened to return for some affairs. Otherwise, they would definitely have missed this great event. Ling Han sipped tea and chatted with them. Their reunion lasted for over a month, and only then did they part again. He began to focus his full attention on cultivation. Chapter 2409. The Celestial Path Appears. Chapter 2409. The Celestial Path Appears. Time passed swiftly. Everyone was rapidly raising their respective cultivation level. 10,000 years had passed, and Ling Dongxing and his wife had finally advanced into the severing mundane tier. Furthermore, it was achieved through Wally's special method, so they had had no need to sever their earthly bonds. This kind of severing mundane tier would be weaker than ordinary severing mundane tier, but Ling Han was unworried. What he wanted was merely cultivation level. As long as they could advance to the ascending origin tier in future, he would be able to forcefully raise them to the Celestial King tier with the Celestial King pill. Even Ling Dongxing and his wife had been able to advance to the severing mundane tier. What more the others who advanced even faster? Ling Han had not completed the second tempering of source power yet. Then another 5,000 years passed, and he finally completed this second step, advancing into the great consummate level of the ascending origin tier. Once the upper limit of his cultivation level was unlocked, his battle prowess soared madly once more, his vitality index reaching as high as 4,999 points. The lowest standard for Celestial King was 5,000, just short of a single point. Ling Han was surprised. He was weaker than the Celestial King tier. There seemed to be a mysterious restriction in the heaven and earth. You were not a Celestial King, so there was no way you could possess Celestial King tier battle prowess. However, he was really just short of a single point, so it could really be considered as no different. Similarly, his defense index was also short of 1 point from 5,000. In other words, should a First Heaven Celestial King attack him, they could hurt or even kill him, but they would need to attack him countless times. Probably a First Heaven Celestial King would get a headache from such terrifying defense. By this stage, the source power in Ling Han's body was mostly extremely pure. What he needed to do was to expand his reserves of source power and fill up his entire dantian to reach the peak stage of the consummate level. This step took a very, very long time. Source power was origin power concentrated. About 100,000 portions of origin power could condense into only a single portion of source power, which showed just how difficult, and naturally, how astonishingly time-consuming this could be. However, Ling Han had enough confidence that he could definitely attain the peak stage of the consummate level before the celestial path opened. If worse came to worst, even if he fell a bit short, that would be fine. The celestial path would be open for a very, very long time. He could absolutely attain the peak stage of the consummate level while he was on the celestial path. Hunyeo, the Empress, and bewitching Maiden Ro were all confident that they could reach the peak stage of the consummate level before the celestial path opened. But there was no hope for the others. They were not just a little bit away from that point. Once more, Ling Han focused his energy on alchemy. He was determined to boost the successful pill concoction rate to 100% for 5-star alchemical pills. Otherwise, when the time came to concoct the Celestial King pill, even if it was just a single failure, he would still feel extreme heartache at the waist. With an astonishing money-making machine like Alchemy City, Ling Han's wealth became more and more abundant, and the number of Celestial King pills that he could concoct also increased. Of course, he was still lacking celestial seeds, which could only be obtained on the celestial path. 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. Time passed swiftly. Ling Han's only regret was that he still had not managed to find a son. Who knew how this unfilial son of his was doing by now? Now that he had a wife, he didn't want his elderly parents anymore. He did not return to visit them even after so long. The deadline of 30,000 years was close at hand, and Ling Han and the others set out once more, planning to walk the celestial path and become celestial kings. Every single one of them was slightly excited. This was Celestial King tier, the highest level in the celestial realm. The Heavenly Venerable tier could not be counted in, as their numbers were pitifully few after all. The number of Heavenly Venerates could be counted on one hand. Ling Han, Hunyeo, the Empress, and bewitching Maiden Ro had naturally reached the peak stage of the consummate level ascending origin tier, and Little Terror was not far behind, either. After it had adapted to the new way of cultivation, it had already returned to the consummate level of the ascending origin tier, possessing frightening battle prowess. The four of them, along with Wally, headed north. At the northernmost region of this mainland lay the entrance to the Celestial Path. Though the Celestial Path was called a path, it was actually a massive mystery realm. Both the Western and Eastern Celestial Realm had a path of entry, which would only appear once every 10 billion years. Ling Han and his group traveled over mountains and rivers, and arrived at the entrance into the Celestial Path 3 years later. At this time, there were still about 2 years left until the opening of the Celestial Path. The time was not fixed. Sometimes it would be earlier, and at others it would be later. Hence, everyone would try to arrive as early as possible. Because Yen Xianlu and the others were still cultivating in Saintly Origin Academy, they would be entering through the entrance of the Western Celestial Realm and would not encounter Ling Han and his group here. Damn brat! Grandpa Dog will send you on your last journey. The large black dog popped out from who knew where. Ling Han couldn't help but feel gloomy. He was not dying, so what was all this about his last journey? This damn dog did indeed have bad mouth. Ling Han humphed and asked, "Have you developed Heavenly Venerable tier power yet?" Damn brat! Grandpa Dog was just coming to call you to accounts. The large black dog's expression was filled with displeasure. Those stupid cultivation techniques, models, formulas of yours, Tui, Grandpa Dog has not understood them even after so many years. Ling Han laughed loudly. Please do not blame others for asking a difficult question for your own stupidity. The large black dog ignored him and pulled Wally aside. It was unknown what the man and dog were muttering quietly about, and Ling Han couldn't be bothered to care either. It had to have something to do with cultivating the power of heaven and earth. Many recognized Ling Han and knew that he was the chairperson of Alchemy City, as well as a 5-star Grandmaster himself, and thus came forwards to greet him. Even if most of everyone here were ascending origin tiers, there were still some that were here to watch the excitement. Their strength varied, and there were very few of them. But even if anyone successfully walked the celestial path and managed to become a celestial king, they would still have to be polite to Ling Han. In the first place, the cultivation environment of the Eastern Celestial Realm could not be compared to the Western Celestial Realms at all, and added with the majority of monarch tiers and king tiers having gone to the Saintly Origin Academy, there were pitifully few here that were prodigies. Even if they had set foot on the celestial path, there would still be pitifully few that could form a celestial seed and become a celestial king. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Everyone was waiting like they usually did. One day, a rainbow suddenly appeared in the skies. Immediately, everyone's eyes were drawn. Upon closer look, they realized this was not an ordinary rainbow. Not only did it have 9 colors, one end of it was planted on the ground, while the other end was connected to the boundless galaxy. "The celestial path has appeared!" Someone suddenly shouted, and a commotion immediately arose. For some of them, this was not the first time they had been here, while for others it was their first. That kind of excitement naturally could not be compared with what the wily old foxes felt. They were filled with confidence, and thought that it was the business of others should they fail, and they themselves would definitely succeed. Ling Han turned and asked, "Wally, are you going?" No. The large black dog waved his paw repeatedly. "He's Grandpa Dog's now, so don't have any ideas about him." Wally simply stood silently at the side, giving tacit agreement. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. Who knew what the large black dog had sacrificed that Wally would agree to cooperate with him? There was an 80% chance it was divine metal. It seemed like Wally only accepted this, and the large black dog was a 9th heaven celestial king. So he definitely had to be able to obtain divine metal. "All right, we'll leave then." Ling Han and the others set out, heading towards the rainbow. They were not the first. A considerable number had already stepped onto the rainbow, but they had not walked too many steps when they fell down. As a result, others flew, wanting to directly land in midair, but strangely, they could not land on the rainbow from midair. Ling Han and the others also set foot on the rainbow. Their first feeling was that it was slippery, which caused their footing to become unsteady. They nearly all just fell off instantly. No wonder so many people hadn't been able to stand firmly. Indeed, the cultivation level of Ascending Origin tier seemed to have lost all effectiveness here. That was because this was a natural mystery realm, whose might was something that even celestial kings could not stand against. Chapter 2410, Sensing the Power of Heaven and Earth. Chapter 2410, Sensing the Power of Heaven and Earth. Why was it so difficult for Ascending Origin tiers to become celestial kings? To say nothing of finding or forming a complete celestial seed, merely passing this path to enter into the real celestial path was as difficult as ascending the heavens. It was visible that the Ascending Origin tiers looked like they were people just learning to walk, falling after every few steps, and looking very miserable. Ling Han took a look. By now, even the person who had walked the farthest had just barely walked a distance of about 90 meters. The majority were still flailing at around the height of 30 meters in a very amusing manner. He walked past them and got a personal experience as well. Why was it difficult to walk? That was because this rainbow bridge was formed by regulations, and it was 9 different regulations that were constantly changing. Unless one cultivated a corresponding regulation, they would be seriously targeted and would very easily slip off. You wanted to cross the bridge? You could. Firstly, you had to be proficient in these 9 regulations, and then you would still be able to handle it calmly no matter how much the regulations changed. But below Celestial King tier, who would have so much free time to cultivate other types of regulations. Even if you did, it would only be 2 or 3 different types altogether. 4, 5. Sorry, you would not have so much energy. Hence, to be proficient in 9 different regulations was truly something that was practically impossible. Secondly, when one's grasp of a certain regulation reached the pinnacle, then no matter how the outside world changed, one would use the same technique to deal with any changes. This naturally was one way. Though they had to be extremely cautious and careful, it suited the majority of cultivators. For example, the Empress, Hunyao, and bewitching Maiden Ro had all just focused on cultivating one single regulation, and purely because of the greatest eternity, everlasting physique, they had also attained considerable accomplishments in the regulations of time. They could still forge on steadily, not at very fast speed, but every step was firm and steady. Ling Han had cultivated every cultivation level, every regulation to perfection. Hence, he could cross safely on any single one regulation. What more with the many regulations he had grasped? Yet Ling Han did the opposite. He did not use any regulations, and just simply strode forwards like that. His body art had been tempered with the power of heaven and earth, and its level was superior to regulations. Ling Han wanted to test to see if it could be used here. At first, he could not set foot on the Rainbow Bridge at all, being inferior to even the weakest of ascending origin tiers. This had drawn the secret mockery of a great many, but because they were wary of his identity as the chairperson of Alchemy City, not one of them laughed out loud. However, it was inevitable that they would be whispering quietly among themselves. Why has an alchemist come to join in on the excitement? What alchemist have you met that had become a celestial king? Natural talent differs. How is it possible that they could claim the top simultaneously in two different fields? That's right. 5-star alchemist is already awesome enough, and he still wants to become a celestial king? These were all short-sighted people, all making wisecracks on the sidelines. But they were limited to whispering and muttering among themselves. None of them would dare to have Ling Han overhear them. Actually, Ling Han had heard them, but he could not be bothered to give any reaction. By now, what need did he have to be concerned about the opinions of these pieces of trash? He was just like a tiger. No matter how much an ant provoked him, he would not be bothered to pay any regard. Ling Han told the Empress and the others there was no need to wait for him. In any case, if he fell too far behind, he could catch up with them with the power of regulation. He was sure that reaching the top of the rainbow would not need too much time. He was very intrigued by the celestial path itself. Before this, he had deliberately asked for guidance from the Eternal Prosperity Celestial King, and had Wally do an analysis and prediction as well. He thought that it was highly possible that the celestial path was the core of the celestial real mirror, at least a place that was close to the core. Hence, he would be able to grasp the essence of regulations here, or even form a celestial seed, which could be planted in the mind of a cultivator. It was connected to regulations. I am regulations itself, and I am the representative of the heaven and earth. What Ling Han was concerned about was that since they were already close to the core, could he sense the power of heaven and earth here? He had heard from Wally that the Genesis world was made up of 6 types of essence energy. It was the same for every dimension. However, the higher the level of the dimension, the more such essence energy it possessed, and the greater the allowance of space for elites. For example, the celestial realm and foreign realm were actually both low-level dimensions. But while the celestial realm could not accommodate a first-tier, heavenly venerate, the foreign realm could do so. Aside from these 6 essence energy types, every dimension possessed a power that was unique to it. It could also be considered its own mark, and could only be grasped when one had become a heavenly venerate. Hence, there was another reason that Ling Han was determined to enter the celestial path, and that was to sense that unique power of the celestial realm. A mere ascending origin tier, even if he became a celestial king, would only be a first heaven celestial king, and he actually wanted to sense the power of heaven and earth and reach the heavens in a single bound. If this was any other person, this naturally would be a joke, but Ling Han could already extract void particle energy by now, though he could not refine it at all, and could only use this kind of power to make it flow through his body and temper himself. He had still sensed this level of power before, after all. Precisely because of this consideration, He used the power of heaven and earth to try walking the Rainbow Bridge. He failed countless times, but had absolutely no intention of giving up. He had a vague feeling that this was possible. He did not know why he was so certain, but he just believed it. 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Though the Empress and the others were walking very slowly, they had still walked to a point that could no longer be seen with the naked eye after so long. And a lot of people had also adapted to the changes of the Rainbow Bridge. Those that could succeed had more or less succeeded. Step after step, they were walking towards the other end of the Rainbow Bridge. Ling Han naturally became the butt of jokes for many people, mainly because they were jealous. He was the chairperson of Alchemy City, the youngest 5-star alchemist in history. And if he was still so freakish in cultivation, how would others be able to live with themselves? Humans would always think of a way to give themselves some feeling of superiority. 30,000 times, 50,000 times, 100,000 times. Ling Han suddenly broke into a grin. He had finally grasped the key and vaguely sensed a power that was close to the level of void particle energy, but was still distinctly different. That power that belonged solely to the celestial realm. If this was known to other ninth heaven celestial kings, they would definitely be mad with envy. To the sealed emotion, heavenly venerable, and Ju heavenly venerate, becoming a second tier, heavenly venerate was transcendence. But for the majority of ninth heaven celestial kings, becoming a heavenly venerate was actually transcendence as well. Otherwise, they would only be equals with regulations. Sensing that unique power of the celestial realm was the first step towards heavenly venerable tier. Unfortunately, too many ninth heaven celestial kings could only watch but not reach even this step. If there was any celestial king in the celestial realm presently that could do this, it probably would only be the imperial void celestial king. Otherwise, he would not have the grand ambition of definitely becoming a heavenly venerate in an epic's time. This was the power unique to the celestial realm. Ling Han nodded internally and attempted to use the model that Wally had given him to absorb this power. Unfortunately, though, there was no way to stimulate it at all. It was very simple. This model, or rather technique, from Wally was meant for void particle energy, and this power belonged solely to the celestial realm. It was unique, so the method was completely unsuited. It was fine. Since Ling Han had already sensed this power, it was equivalent to having taken the most crucial step from the celestial king tier towards heavenly venerable tier, and Ling Han hadn't even become a celestial king yet. Ling Han's confidence was naturally even more abundant when it came to becoming a heavenly venerate. He began to stride forwards, every step taken like he was walking on flat land. In fact, he even began to run afterwards. Because his body had been tempered by void particle energy before, its overall level was superior to regulations, and had even surpassed that unique power of the celestial realm. Once he had adapted, he began to burst out. Ling Han ran madly. Chapter 24:11 Sprinting Wildly on the Celestial Path. Chapter 24:11 Sprinting Wildly on the Celestial Path. A great many people had not even managed to see Ling Han. They only managed to glimpse a figure blazing past them like lightning. Because Ling Han was too fast, he caused a powerful gust of wind. In fact, a great many people were thrown off the Rainbow Bridge by the force of the wind. Upon closer look, one would discover that these people were all those that had spoken badly of Ling Han before, who said that Ling Han was not the type to hold a grudge. Not bothering to pay them any attention did not mean that he had forgotten. Since he had run past them, he would put slightly more effort into it while he was at it. Sending these people off the bridge as a small punishment naturally was just a very slight effort for him. If this was flat land, to create a gust of wind from sprinting to send these consummate level ascending origin tier elites tumbling was absolutely impossible, unless Ling Han made a deliberate move. But this place was different. The Rainbow Bridge was incredibly slippery. Everyone had to walk carefully on it. So how could they bear up against this external force? All of a sudden, It was like a celestial maiden scattering flowers as countless people fell down from the skies. That scene was quite grand and magnificent. Who is this? He's a bit too powerful, isn't he? Others can only walk cautiously, yet he can sprint at full speed. This overwhelming strength is completely unfair. Hiss! Why do I feel that his rear view is a little familiar? Ling Han. He's Ling Han. There will always be those with sharp eyes, and they recognized Ling Han. With this call, everyone was dumbfounded. The one that was sprinting madly on the Rainbow Bridge was actually Ling Han. Heavens! Previously everyone had still been laughing at him. Alchemists were only alchemists, after all. But now, there was no one with that kind of freakish talent. Even added together, would all of them be able to compare to him? Have you guys noticed? Those that have been blown off the celestial path were those people that laughed at him before. Someone asked slowly. With this reminder, everyone's expressions instantly changed. Now that you're saying it, it seems like that really is the case. The more you think about it, the scarier it is. His sprint is actually targeting them, showing that even now his grasp of power is still proficient and smooth. I am about to lose my mind. How could such a freak exist? That's right. In alchemy, he's king, and now in cultivation. He's also leaving us all behind in his dust. No one can be his equal, and he is peerless in this world. Everyone exclaimed in shock. Comparing yourself to him would truly drive you crazy. Ling Han released a battle cry. His speed became faster and faster. It was like what lay beneath his feet was not a path of trial formed from regulations, but rather a wide path that could not be more ordinary. One after another, he sprinted past everyone. In the first place, the Eastern Celestial Realm did not have many Emperor tiers, and now that they had all been enrolled into the Saintly Origin Academy, or had gone to the Western Celestial Realm as summoned by the Heavenly Venerates, while those that stayed could not be considered the bottom of the barrel, there were indeed not even many Emperor tiers among them. When Ling Han had passed a certain Emperor tier, there was already no one ahead of him. The Empress and the others' lead was extraordinarily huge, and when they saw Ling Han sprint past him, that Emperor tier almost fell off the Rainbow Bridge in his shock. Gods, he'd seen a ghost. Ling Han ran for a considerably long time again, right until he was drawing close to the end of the Rainbow Bridge. Only then did he finally see the Empress and the others. The Empress and Hunyo were both progressing smoothly, but bewitching Maiden Ro was doing considerably worse. Her forehead was covered with sweat. After all, she was only a monarch tier, unlike Hunyo and the Empress, who were both monarch stars. Ling Han. Hunyo was the first to discover Ling Han, and immediately waved at him. She was in the lead, and behind her was bewitching Maiden Ro. With such a sudden stop, bewitching Maiden Ro almost collided with her. This, which continuously patted her bountiful bosom at the near miss, causing it to wave alluringly. Who knew if she was doing it on purpose? Ling Han caught up and grinned. Thankfully, I've caught up. The three women had not reached the end of the Rainbow Bridge yet. He had not broken his promise. They walked a few more steps, and the Rainbow Bridge reached its end. The end of the Rainbow Bridge was actually connected to a steep cliff. This cliff was very strange. It was illusory, and whichever angle one looked at it from, it seemed to be non-existent. It could only be seen when one was standing on the Rainbow Bridge, and could only be set foot on from there as well. The power of heaven and earth was not something that could be humanly studied. They all stepped onto the cliff, and the steady and real feeling of gravity returned to them. They felt a profound ease at this. Otherwise, it would feel like they were hanging in midair. This first step tests one's agreement with Tao, Ling Han said, turning his head. The Empress nodded. If understanding of great Tao is still not thorough enough, there would be no way to pass through here at all. This first test would eliminate half the candidates, and also gave a resounding blow to many rookies who had come for the first time. Becoming a celestial king was not as simple as they had imagined. We still have 10,000 years' time. Once the celestial path was open, or rather after this mystery realm had begun, there was 10,000 years' time for them to roam around here and search for the true celestial path. Furthermore, after 10,000 years, the celestial path would close and reopen only after another 10 billion years. If they could not manage to leave in time, they wouldn't die, of course. However, this was extremely close to the core of this heaven and earth. There was a mysterious power here. As long as one stayed here for more than 10,000 years, they would be bound by this power and would never be able to leave again. There are only two ways if you want to leave this place. First, go back on the path that you have come. Second, head to the center of this mystery realm. There is something similar to a transfer formation there, but only a celestial king would be able to activate it. In other words, if you can't become a celestial king, you can only go back the path that you have come. But if you penetrate too deep or lose your way, the moment the deadline of 10,000 years has passed, you would be eternally trapped here. Since the ancient times, countless people have been trapped here, and as they grew older and had children, this mystery realm has become more and more populated. Additionally, though they would be eternally trapped here, they could also let go of all other worries. They would have boundless time to attempt becoming a celestial king. Hence, there would be celestial kings here, and their number would not be too few either. Ling Han and the others were all thinking back on the information about the celestial path. This was something that they had to know. I am truly quite curious. Yen Xianlu was born on the celestial path. Could it be that there were two ascending origin tiers that fell in love with each other here and couldn't stop themselves from being caught in their passion? Ling Han had a strange expression on his face. He truly wanted to see just who these two were. Bewitching Maiden Ro could only shake her head. Why was this guy's thought process always so strange? They dared not be careless. At first, they thought that they could walk unrestrainedly on the celestial path. But since this place had celestial king tier beings, they had to be careful. Moreover, having become a celestial king here, they were still unable to leave. Perhaps their personality would also have become warped. They had better not encounter this kind of maniac that would trap them here and prevent them from leaving. That would really be a great loss for them. Haha, you've lost. Amidst a loud bout of laughter, two people were seen walking towards them. One was tall and the other was short. They were both men, and presently it was the shorter man that was speaking to the taller man. Meanwhile, the taller man glared at Ling Han and his group, baffling Ling Han and the others. What did we do to you? Why are you looking at us so viciously? The shorter man snickered. I made a bet with him that after the celestial path opens this time round, the fastest person would walk over the Rainbow Bridge within 3 days. I'd bet on yes, and he bet on no. Hence, now that we've seen you here, it naturally proves that I've won. The taller man revealed a blazing killing intent. As long as I kill them, there wouldn't be any, right? You can't be that kind of sore loser, the shorter man hurriedly exclaimed. Yet Ling Han chuckled. How overbearing. Wanting to kill just for something like that. Can't I? The tall man scoffed. There is no way your celestial king tier elites can come in here, but we have celestial kings on guard here. Thus, it would be best for you to submit obediently. Chapter 2412 Blue North King. Chapter 2412 Blue North King. This was a very realistic threat. The celestial kings of the celestial realm were unable to enter into the celestial path if they really wanted to. They could, but they would have to cripple themselves and cultivate from the beginning. Yet there were celestial kings within the celestial path. Then the celestial kings here would be comparable to heavenly venerates that were invincible. Ling Han laughed. He dared to even point at heavenly venerates and insult them to their faces. How could it be that he would be scared by an ascending origin tier? He walked forwards. What I despise most is when someone threatens me. This is not a threat, the tall man stated calmly, his eyes menacing. Chi's killing intent was indeed very strong. He did not know Ling Han and the others. But who asked these people to be really too despicable? They actually walked over the rainbow bridge so quickly, causing him to lose. He was displeased and wanted to kill. As for those outside the celestial path, apologies, he only considered them his prey. Hunyo was the first to jump out. If you want to fight with Nyo's Ling Han, you have to first pass Nyo. She was mostly just itching for a fight. There was no one that could match her in the eastern celestial realm at all. As an elite, she felt very lonely. The tall man couldn't help but be stunned. Both Hunyo and the Empress were too beautiful to look at, and he had held himself back from looking previously. But with Hunyo stepping out like this, all his attention was involuntarily captivated as his heartbeat sped up. You still want to kill Nyo's Ling Han, you smelly bug! Hunyo made the first move. Boom! The moment she made her move, it was incredibly frightening. Her tiny fist shot out, but it was like the heaven and earth were collapsing. The expressions of both tall and short man changed drastically. Though the short man had not had any killing intent, he had not taken Ling Han and his group seriously either. It wasn't right until this show from Hunyo that they finally realized just how terrifying the opponent was. No wonder they had managed to cross the Rainbow Bridge within 3 days. Without overwhelming talent and strength, how could they possibly accomplish this feat? And this was because they had not witnessed the scene of Ling Han sprinting madly on the Rainbow Bridge, or they would definitively be scared to death. The tall man quickly moved to parry, but in front of Hunyo, he was completely far from enough. Very soon, he was suppressed completely, and defeat was only something that would happen in an instant. This was natural. Hunyo was a monarch star. Ah! The tall man roared in fury. He took out something red that looked a little like dirt, and then actually stuffed it into his mouth. Even if you're no match for Nyo, there is no need to eat dirt, right? Hunyo laughed loudly. The tall man did not reply, but his battle prowess actually soared many times over in an instant, with multiple veins popping out all over his body, making it seem like he had turned into some kind of monster, which was extremely frightening. Ling Han's eyes involuntarily narrowed. Even if this tall man flipped out suddenly in this state, he actually would still be no match for Hunyo, yet he now had the ability to fight back. But it should be known that Hunyo was a monarch star. This person was a king tier at most. What the heck was that red thing to actually be able to help a king tier instantly realize a double leap in strength? From king tier to monarch star, the increase to battle prowess was astonishing. Humph! Nyo will still beat you until you burst. Hunyo shouted, her tiny fists shooting out in a barrage of punches. True enough, the tall man was suppressed in only about 100 moves. Even if they were both monarch stars, there were still differences in strength, and the present Hunyo belonged to the category of extremely powerful monarch star. Hunyo's foot stomped on the tall man. He struggled, wanting to get up, but he felt like there was an immovable, colossal mountain weighing down on him. He couldn't move the slightest bit. We can talk things over. The short man hurriedly played mediator. He, too, had gotten scared. He had not expected that Ling Han and his group would have such terrifying strength. Even when his companion had used the ultimate means, he was still unable to win. Ling Han smiled and asked, "That bright red thing, you have it too, right?" The short man hesitated slightly, and sure enough, he took a bright red object from his robes. It really looked like mud, but it was very sticky and smooth, filled with bounciness. There was completely no way to discern what this was. Ling Han took it over and studied it closely, but could not sense anything at all. He thought for a while and then bit into it. The short man couldn't help but be dumbfounded, wondering if this person was an actual idiot. He didn't even know what this exactly was, and actually dared to bite into it? What if this was a deadly poisonous substance? Ling Han naturally dared to eat it because he had very strong confidence. Firstly, the tall man had eaten it too, and secondly, Ling Han's physique was incredibly amazing. He was just that tiny sliver away from the Celestial King tier, and could completely be considered a Celestial King himself. Thus, he was naturally unafraid. He was too curious, To be able to cause a king tier's strength to spike so madly, this was no ordinary object. Ling Han's eyes lit up. His body was actually absorbing that unique power of this heaven and earth. Fuck, this thing was too shocking, wasn't it? Wait, no. Ling Han immediately shook his head. Though his body absorbed this kind of power, it could not truly absorb it. His body could only be considered a passage. And in this process, there was not the slightest improvement to his physique. If anyone wanted to use this to comprehend the first step towards heavenly venerable tier, this would be completely impossible. Even so, this was too amazing. A bright red thing could allow one to lend the power of heaven and earth. No wonder the tall man's strength had suddenly soared so greatly, just like Ling Han, who was clearly only at the consummate level of the ascending origin tier. His battle prowess had directly soared to the first heaven's celestial king tier, but it was not so exaggerated for him. Furthermore, this thing would be useless outside of the celestial path. Thus, it was only here that the power of heaven and earth would be so close, but once you were outside, it would be far from reach. What made Ling Han even gloomier was that he could not obtain the slightest improvement to his battle prowess, and the ultimate reason was probably because he had already used the void particle energy, which was even higher in level to temper his body, so the red demonic dirt had no effect of boosting his battle prowess. Hunyo was keen. The more Ling Han forbade her, the more she thought about it. Because it was the tall man who had shown killing intent first, Ling Han had no plans to stop her, either, but instead told Hunyo to have fun playing. Once she was bored with it, she would not keep asterisk at the tip of her tongue in future. The little girl took out an iron spear, a malicious expression curling up the corners of her lips. Then, all of a sudden, she stabbed it into the behind of that tall man. Ah! The tall man released an agonized wail. He could be no more tragic than this. Ling Han ignored him and merely patted the short man's shoulder. "Oh, right. I forgot to ask who you guys are." The short man wanted to cry. "You guys are too cruel, aren't you? You don't even know who we are, and you've beaten up my colleague and have even a dollar pet him. It hurts even just by looking. We are the subordinates of the Blue North King." Ling Han smiled. "Come, tell me all about this Blue North King." In the Celestial King, it was natural that every Celestial King would be called a king. Because of various reasons, there were many people who had not managed to leave the celestial path in time, and as a result, they were trapped here for eternity. Furthermore, there were some that were outstandingly talented among them as well. The majority of them were emperor tiers. After going through an extensive period of time, there naturally was a chance for them to become celestial kings as well. Additionally, those that were trapped would also have children here, and as generations passed, some outstandingly talented descendants would emerge from their line and become celestial kings as well. The Blue North King belonged to the latter category. He was a native that was born and raised on the celestial path, while his parents were both disciples that had come from great sections. However, they had not managed to become celestial kings ultimately. Instead, it was he that possessed the aptitude of an emperor tier, and after countless years of hard cultivation, he had reached the pinnacle of his life. The Blue North King ruled over the crucial point where the Rainbow Bridge entered into the celestial path. If one wanted to barge into the expansive space of the celestial path, they would first have to pass through the territory of the Blue North King. Ling Han asked further about the power structure in the celestial path, and finally gained further knowledge of this place. Inside the celestial path, even the celestial king with the highest cultivation level was only at third heaven. It could not be helped. It was practically impossible that there would be monarch tiers among those that would remain here, so it was naturally difficult to attain fourth heaven or fifth heaven. Chapter 24:13 A Complete Celestial Seed. Chapter 24:13 A Complete Celestial Seed. The Blue North King was a first heaven celestial king and had ascended Tao around 7 billion years ago, but his strength was still quite extraordinary. That was why he managed to lay claim to his own territory and become the ruler of his territory. However, the closer it was to the core of the celestial path, the greater the forces would be, and the stronger the celestial kings there would be as well. Why? It was said that there was an amazing treasure at the heart of the celestial path. All the great celestial kings were contending for it. Hence, they established their own forces. On the one hand, it was so that they could war with one another, and on the other, they were searching all over for it. But so far, no one had managed to obtain this treasure yet. Ling Han very much wanted to know what this treasure was. Unfortunately, limited by his status, the shorter man had no means of knowing this great secret. Then what is this thing? Ling Han tossed the red substance in his hand and caught it again. This thing was very shocking, actually being able to stimulate that unique power of the celestial realm. Though it could not be used to temper the body, if he could experience it continuously, it would definitely help Ling Han advance faster to the heavenly venerable tier after he had broken through to the ninth heaven celestial king tier. We call this the crimson, demonic earth, the shorter man replied. Where does it come from? Ling Han was more curious about the origins of this substance. Could it have been shot forth from the core of this realm? I don't know either, the shorter man said. He was speaking honestly. This material was nothing rare in the celestial source. Just like alchemical pills and weapons, there would be people selling it, and the price was not exceedingly high either. At the very least, it was completely a price that an ascending origin tier could afford. Direct consumption was actually the simplest method to use the crimson, demonic earth. It could also be used for building structures, which would boast incredibly firm defense. This was also how the crimson, demonic earth had gotten its name. Additionally, adding a little crimson demonic earth when forging weapons would greatly increase the might of the weapon, but crimson demonic earth was a consumable substance. Once it was used up, this weapon would become ordinary as well. What about celestial seeds? Ling Han asked further. Celestial seed is an extremely valuable item, the shorter man quickly replied. At the same time, his expression also held a hint of envy. One can only harvest celestial seeds by himself and nurture it in his own body. The moment it is taken out, it will be worthless. I have already been at the peak stage of the consummate level of the ascending origin tier for 7 billion years, but I still have not gathered enough celestial seed shards, and celestial king tier is still far ahead in the distance for me. He shook his head, seeming very disappointed. To obtain a complete celestial seed was an illusory feat. One could only gather broken shards, and then use their own body as a cauldron to fuse them together. Those who were more powerful would be able to nurture an entire, complete celestial seed. Just ask all the celestial kings in the world. The majority of them had progressed from the ascending origin tier in this manner. But there were also those who had heaven-defying luck and strength and had directly obtained a complete celestial seed. After they became celestial kings, their strength was also world-shaking, far surpassing that of celestial kings of the same level. This could be considered the pinnacle level of the ascending origin tier. Instantly, Ling Han felt his heart throb wildly. He did not hope that Lu Yutong and the others like his parents, whose natural talent was not that high in the first place, would fight. Hence, it was all right as long as they could become celestial kings and no longer had to be afraid of a mortal's tribulation. They could use the celestial king pill that was refined with the celestial seed that was pieced together from broken shards to break through. But he, Hunyo, and the Empress as their main military strength would definitely have to break through with complete celestial seeds. Otherwise, he would rather choose to retreat from the celestial path before the deadline of 10,000 years and wait for another attempt after another 10 billion years. If the foundations were not sturdy enough, how could a high tower be built? Let's go and take a look at Blue North City. Ling Han had the shorter man lead the way, setting out towards the territory of the Blue North King. After Hunyo played for a while, she lost interest. With a clap of her hands, she could not be bothered to pay any more regard to the taller man, and set off in pursuit of Ling Han and the others. This journey to Blue North City was not very long. It only took about half a day's time before a great city appeared ahead of them. Ling Han was surprised. In his impression, the cities of the celestial realm were all as large as planets. But this city was far from reaching this extent. Instead, it was about the same size as the cities in the lower realm. He could see the entire city with just a single glance. I heard that the cities from outside are countless times bigger than this, the shorter man asked. When he saw that the tall man had not died, he was relieved. There was no need for him to worry that Ling Han and his group would kill him to keep him quiet. Ling Han nodded and said, "Why are your cities here so small?" "Probably because we have a small population," the short man answered as he sighed. Indeed, there was a limited number of people who would be trapped here every time the celestial path opened. But after so many years, they should have multiplied and had many descendants, growing in great numbers, right? According to the short man, this mainly was a problem of birth rate. Even if the people here were not very strong, the chance of pregnancy was still exceedingly low. Hence, there was no need to build a very large city at all, or it would be hard to see even a single person in a radius of 5,000 kilometers. The short man led Ling Han and the others into the city. The people here also knew that the celestial path would be open every 10 billion years. Hence, the city was also incredibly lively, taking out various local products to be used to trade for things that could not be found here. If these goods were resold again in the future, it would definitely bring a fortune. Of course, the crimson demonic earth was the most important of all. Aside from it being sold directly, there were also weapons and shields that were forged from a mixture of crimson demonic earth and other materials. Their prices were also very profitable. The strange thing was there were no star stones produced on the celestial path. Hence, star stones had also become something that the locals of the celestial path hoped to obtain from the outsiders the most. These products of crimson demonic earth were actually very ordinary in the eyes of the local seven if they weren't considered ordinary. They would just be slightly more expensive items. They were just like celestial medicines. Though they might be expensive, there would still be buyers. But as Ling Han saw it, these were all items that could not be seen or bought outside. He did not mind spending great sums to purchase them. In any case, starstones were actually the most worthless items to him. The party of four shopped madly, and the shorter man felt very envious as he watched them spend star stones like flowing water from the sidelines. This was something that was in shortage on the celestial path, and it was also an expendable item. They could only replenish their stores every 10 billion years. What Ling Han lacked the least was money. They only returned with satisfaction once they had bought about enough. But a great many traders were still chasing behind them, fighting to shove their goods off on them. They previously had truly been too spendthrift, not even bargaining when they were shopping. This kind of customer was naturally their favorite. There were inns here, and Ling Han and his group rented a courtyard, planning to spend some time here primarily because they wanted to find out about celestial seeds. There were two types of celestial seed in the celestial path. The first type was a complete celestial seed. One could become a celestial king just by obtaining one. But firstly, this item was incredibly rare, and secondly, it would definitely be located in extremely dangerous and terrible environments. And once there were others contending for it, it would definitely result in massive bloodshed. Who did not know that a naturally complete celestial king was incredibly valuable, and that someone who used it to become a celestial king would have battle prowess that was much greater than his peers? The second type was an incomplete one, which could appear anywhere. What Ling Han wanted to know was if there were any complete celestial seeds in the vicinity. He made his queries, and he really did manage to get some information. Around 5,000 kilometers outside of Blue North City, there was indeed a complete celestial seed. There was a celestial tree there, which would flower every few trillion years and bear fruit after another several trillion years. These fruits would only ripen after yet another few trillion years, and altogether, it would take precisely an entire epoch. And the fruits borne by this celestial tree would be complete celestial seeds. Furthermore, there could be as many as 3 to 5 fruits born on this tree. Ling Han's heart thumped in excitement. Chapter 2414, Mistlocked Valley. Chapter 2414, Mistlocked Valley. A celestial tree could bear several fruits, and every single fruit was actually a complete celestial seed. Ling Han needed a very large number of celestial seeds, and when he heard wind of this information, he was naturally tempted. Though there were very few complete celestial seeds, there would still be people who managed to obtain them as well, and a lot of information had streamed out. For example, the closer to the heart of the celestial path, the closer to perfection the celestial seed fruits born by the celestial trees there would be, and the stronger the celestial kings that had obtained these fruits. If he could obtain complete celestial seeds here, Ling Han had no plans on refining it himself, but he would keep one in reserve just in case. If he had still not managed to find a better celestial seed when it was close to the deadline of 10,000 years, he would use this celestial seed to complete his breakthrough. It was still better than using a celestial seed that was pieced together from different shards of celestial seed. Very quickly they set out on their way. The fruits of this celestial tree were close to ripening. Perhaps it would be another 3 years or 10 years, but in any case the time would definitely not be too long. Just half a day later, they arrived at their destination, a valley that was enshrouded in mist. One would be immediately dazed when he entered, completely incapable of distinguishing any sense of direction. They would then walk back out of the valley in a complete daze. Once, twice, thrice, no matter how many times, it would produce the same result. It was like they would be endlessly lost. Formation. Ling Han and the others were all curious. They tried to unravel it, but this fog was formed naturally, and there was no rhyme or reason to it. They had no idea where to get started. After a few times, they still walked back out of the valley. Ling Han couldn't help but feel rueful. If Wally was here, it would be great. With the analysis ability of this non-human, he might be able to unravel the mist of this valley. There is no need for you to waste energy. A voice slowly rang out, bearing a powerful magnetism. A young man walked over, dressed in tight-fitting white robes. He looked very handsome, a laid-back expression on his face. Ling Han looked over. "Why do you say that?" "The mist in this valley would only disperse at midnight every night. It will last for 2 hours, and only at that time will anyone be able to enter. Otherwise, no matter how strong or how high your cultivation level is, you will only be running around in circles even if you enter, and just come right out in a daze," the young man in tight-fitting robes explained. "Thanks for the tip." Ling Han clasped his fists. There was night and day on the celestial path, but day would last 72 hours and night would also last 72 hours. A single day was shockingly long. "Outsider." The young man in tight-fitting robes raised a brow. Ling Han smiled. "How can you tell?" The young man laughed. "Aside from outsiders, who else would dare come here?" What did this mean? Was it because this place was too dangerous, so no locals would dare to come? Or was it that this had been petitioned as forbidden land by some force, forbidding any interference from outsiders? "I am Ling Han. How should I address you?" Ling Han asked. Just because the other party had chosen to give them a hint, he also chose to adopt diplomatic measures before violence. "Shan Hao," the young man answered. "Outsider, this is not a place that you should be in. Trust me." Ling Han gave an "oh" and asked, "This place is extremely dangerous." "You can say that." Shan Hao thought for a moment and then nodded. "But the source of this danger is primarily humans." Ling Han understood now. The environment here was indeed dangerous, but it should have been occupied by a particular force, and that was why the man said that the main source of danger was humans. "What I enjoy most is battle, and the stronger the opponent, the better," Ling Han said. Shen Hao's eyes narrowed slightly, and then said, "Outsider, you have very strong confidence. However, your knowledge of our area is too limited. You will be disadvantaged." Ling Han was unconcerned, and took out a handful of crimson, demonic earth. With a grin, he asked, "Are you talking about this?" Shen Hao was surprised. He was indeed planning to say that if outsiders did not know about the crimson demonic earth, they would lose horribly against an opponent of the same level, or even one weaker by a single level. He had not expected that this outsider had already found out about the effects of the crimson, demonic earth when the celestial path had just opened. In fact, he even had a considerable amount of it in possession. "I had not expected that you would actually discover the secret of the crimson, demonic earth." He paused, and then continued, "Looks like you have celestial king-tier elders in your clan, right?" Celestial kings would definitely have walked the celestial path before. Thus, if Ling Han had a celestial king behind him, it was nothing strange for him to know about the crimson, demonic earth. Ling Han smiled slightly and did not refute that. Did having or not having a celestial king-tier background have any importance here? In any case, the hand of the celestial king could not possibly interfere here. He continued the previous conversation topic. "If we don't leave, could it be that you are planning to use violence against us?" Once more, Shen Hao showed a laid-back expression. "I can't be bothered to. However, I am the lazy type, but the others would not do the same." Ling Han laughed loudly. "You are quite interesting." Yet Shen Hao shook his head. "Outsider, don't think that you are very strong. Let me give you a piece of advice. On the celestial path, our strength is usually greater than yours." This clearly was Shen Hao looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. Though the majority of ascending origin tiers were indeed very ordinary, king tiers were already very rare after all. Naturally, emperor tiers and monarch tiers were even rarer to come by. Monarch stars were definitely few and far between. Hence, it was very easy for the residents of the celestial path to consider all outsiders as ordinary ascending origin tiers. If anyone doesn't like it, Niu will beat him into submission. Niu brandished her tiny fist in a wave, looking very fierce. She was exquisitely beautiful, and also held the air of naivete that belonged to a young girl. This action did not seem to be the slightest bit destructive, and others would only think that she was cute and innocent. Shen Hao couldn't help but be dazed for a moment, and he only came back to himself with a tremble a moment later. He shrugged carelessly. "In any case, I have already warned you. Whether you heed my warning or not is your own business." He yawned, and looked like he simply wanted to find some place to lie down and have a good nap. "Second senior brother, whom are you talking to?" A person flew down from the cliff in the distance. It was a woman who was very beautiful. Her tight-fitting red suit outlined her shapely figure. Her eyes swept over, and when she discovered the presence of Niu and the other women, her eyes involuntarily narrowed. Too beautiful. One was noble, one was innocent, and the last was seductive. Even she felt her heart throb faster upon seeing them. She couldn't help but feel a sliver of killing intent. There was actually someone that was superior to her in looks, and it was not just one, but as many as 3 of them at that. Shen Hao's brow raised slightly, not bothering to answer. "Outsiders." The red-clothed woman swept down a glance again, a sliver of a smile curling up the corners of her lips, but her smile carried cruelty. It was easily resolved since they were just outsiders then. If she killed them, that would be completely fine. There was no need to worry about leaving behind any trouble. Actually daring to barge into here, you all are seeking your own deaths, the red-clothed woman declared coldly. With a shake of her hands, a winding blade appeared in each of her hands. Each winding blade was branded with 9 seals, and they were already glowing. She had activated her precious tool. From the get-go, she was going to have no mercy, planning to kill Ling Han and the others. Firstly, it was forbidden for outsiders to interfere in this place, and secondly, she was jealous of Niu and the other women, and had thus immediately lit up her blades. Ugly people are always doing deeds that are up to no good. The Empress sneered. With a few graceful steps and slight, swaying of her slender waist. She was both seductively beautiful and elegantly noble. One's heart would tremble, yet at the same time it would not dare to disrespect her. This was a goddess that could only be admired from afar. Even the red-robed woman's bearing was weaker. In fact, her back had involuntarily bent slightly, but she immediately came back to her senses. She was abruptly infuriated and embarrassed. With a soft exclamation, she charged towards the Empress. Pum! With a flash of red, she was sent flying at a speed faster than when she had shot forwards. Chapter 24:15 Jealousy. Chapter 24:15 Jealousy. Shin Hao gaped, the laid-back expression on his face completely gone. He was shocked to the extreme. This was really a slap to his face. He had just said that Ling Han and his group had to keep a low profile and could not be too arrogant. On average, the people here were all stronger than those from outside. But now, the Empress had rendered him completely speechless with a single slap. The Empress slowly withdrew her hand. It was precisely she that had sent the red-clothed woman flying with a single slap. The red-clothed woman coughed out blood. She could still remain standing. After all, she had the aptitude of a king-tier, and the Empress had only struck her casually. Her eyes were similarly filled with astonishment. Her precious tool had unleashed its might, and added with how she had attacked without reservations, she actually still could not withstand a single blow from this woman in front of her. The latter had to have consumed crimson, demonic earth. Or so she thought, but she could not deny that even if the latter had consumed crimson, demonic earth, the Empress' own strength should be about equal to hers to defeat her in a single move. Their strength was on equal levels, yet there was such a large gap in their appearances and bearing. She found it hard to maintain the balance in her heart. The gods were really too prejudiced. How could they show so much favor to a single person? Don't think that you are the only one who has crimson, demonic earth, she humphed. In the first place, this was a local product of the celestial path and could only be effective on the celestial path. She immediately took out a bit of crimson, demonic earth and stuffed it into her mouth. It was only an instant, and the aura that was exuding from her became completely different, filled with pressure and intimidation. This was too amazing. It had directly raised her vitality index by around 200 points. The Empress disdained consuming dirt. She was confident and dominant, and merely looked down on the red-clothed woman. In her eyes, this was only a disloyal subject. If she didn't like the look of her, she could just erase her directly. Die. The red-clothed woman charged over, brandishing her twin blades, their cold glint dazzling. Previously, she had not managed to exhibit her true strength at all. Now, with the stimulation of the crimson demonic earth, her battle prowess had spiked, and also allowed this pseudo-celestial tool to unleash a frightening might. Xiao, xiao, xiao! Flash after flash of cold light turned into arrows of ice that shot towards the Empress. The Empress was unafraid. She struck out with a hand, stimulating the regulations of time, and the arrows of ice that filled the skies seemed to be frozen as she easily swept them aside. Meanwhile, a freezing technique also seemed to have taken effect on the red-clothed woman. Even moving a single finger had become incredibly difficult for her, and she could only watch helplessly as the Empress came closer, about to place a jade-like hand on her. The red-clothed woman roared in fury, her whole body surging out white light. Finally, she parried the frightening flow of time and retreated 300 meters with a tap of her foot. Pum! She had still been slightly scraped by the force of the strike from the Empress, and almost spluttered out a mouthful of blood again as it caused her extreme pain. Wielder of regulations of time! She hissed venomously, the jealousy in her eyes almost seeming to seep out. Previously, the Empress had already shown enough to incite her jealousy, yet now she actually discovered that the former had even grasped the regulations of time. This was the regulations of time that had a noble status above all other regulations. As long as their cultivation levels were equal, then the person who had grasped the regulations of time would definitely possess an extremely great advantage, and only a celestial king would be able to cancel out this advantage. How could there be such a naturally blessed person in this world? She was defiant, and her killing intent blazed even hotter, filled with a strong sense of humiliation. She took out another suit of armor, which she put on. This was a defensive tool that was forged from crimson demonic earth, and allowed her to possess frightening defensive strength that could resist the power of regulation. She had not used it previously because the crimson demonic earth was a consumable substance. Once it was used up, this armor would also become an ordinary defensive tool. With the treasured armor on her, and her hands wielding twin blades, the red-clothed woman's confidence had completely recovered. She was going to battle again. Rather than fighting, why don't we just have some tea and chat? Shin Hao spoke up to mediate the strife. He had a vague feeling that even if this junior sister was completely equipped from head to toe, it was still impossible that she could match the Empress. Hence, rather than letting things progress to the point that he would be troubled to step in, he would rather just call a halt to things now. Primarily because he was lazy. The red-clothed woman sneered. Sure, as long as she kneels down and kowtows in forgiveness, I will spare her life. To actually beat her to spitting up blood twice, how could she forget this kind of grudge? There was naturally no way that the Empress would agree. Her eyes were malevolent. A mere lowly woman actually dared to demand that she kneeled. Just what extent of insolence was this? "Insolent subject!" she exclaimed and charged out headfirst. Boom! Her aura surged out like an ocean. The red-clothed woman approached. Pung! 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 The two of them burst out into an intense clash. With the protection of this suit of armor, the red-clothed woman was finally qualified to stand against the Empress. The two women exchanged blows, and it could be claimed that they had both met their match. However, one with the slightest bit of a brain could tell that the red-clothed woman's defeat was actually destined. She could only stand against the Empress by depending on the suit of armor and the crimson demonic earth. But the effect of the crimson demonic earth had a limited period of time. Once it was exhausted, her battle prowess would fall back to its original level, and her armor would also become a pile of scrap metal. By then, how was she supposed to stand against the Empress? What the Empress should do was very simple, and that was to exhaust her. But if she did that, she would not be the Empress. That was not her style. How could a dominant Empress allow her opponent to last for such a long time? She delivered a series of palm strikes against the armor. Though this could not wound the red-clothed woman, the frightening power was still endlessly pouring out, which could speed up the exhaustion of the crimson demonic earth in the armor. The red-clothed woman paled in shock. If this went on, she wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. But the both of them had consumed crimson demonic earth. So why was the Empress so powerful, and why would the effects last for such a long time? It should be known that the crimson demonic earth could not be consumed in large quantities. When the limit had been reached, consuming just the slightest bit more would cause terrifying consequences. Another 100+ moves later, she fearfully realized that the might of the armor was beginning to decrease. The crimson demonic earth was close to exhaustion. Gritting her teeth, she took out another portion of crimson demonic earth to stuff into her mouth. "Ninth junior sister, are you mad?" Shen Hao couldn't help but call out. The overconsumption of crimson demonic earth would cause damage that could never be recovered from. Yet the red-clothed woman ignored him completely. She had already swallowed the second portion of crimson demonic earth, and a howl instantly left her mouth, as if a lion had been injured. Her face had originally been very smooth and pretty, but now it was covered with veins, making her look frighteningly ugly. In only an instant, her black locks had all turned white, as if she had aged several decades in an instant. However, her aura was soaring wildly, her frightening power even taking solid form, and becoming multiple black mountains. If one was hit by these mountains, it was guaranteed that severe injuries would ensue. A second use of the crimson demonic earth would cause irrecoverable injuries, but the boost to strength was instantaneous as well. The red-clothed woman felt her body was filled with power. In fact, a feeling of indulgence rose up in her. She wanted nothing more than to consume the crimson demonic earth continuously so that she could stay in this state without end. She was filled with confidence and glared menacingly at the Empress. "Be *TCH, you will suffer miserably at my hand." Ling Han shook his head. This woman was completely overwhelmed by her jealousy. She could not bear to see how the Empress was more outstanding than herself, and was determined to prove that she was better. As a result, she had pushed herself into such dire straits. If she knew that the Empress had not used the crimson demonic earth at all, would she directly die from fury? The two of them weren't on the same level at all. No matter how much she fought, it would only be an ugly person doing deeds that were up to no good. The Empress's killing intent also spiked. Her sharp eyes held ferocity, and an endless imperial dominance spread out from her. The red-clothed woman released a battle cry and charged towards the Empress again. Her arms danced quickly like wind, her blades sweeping out in a brilliance that filled the skies. Her white hair waved wildly as if she had gone insane. Chapter 24:16. My fists are the biggest. Chapter 24:16. My fists are the biggest. The Empress humphed slightly, and as her palms waved, the power of regulation blasted from her palms. She herself turned into the flow of time. At one moment, she would be in the past, and in the next, she would be in the future, so bizarre that she could not be glimpsed. The red-clothed woman's strength had been greatly boosted under the effects of the crimson demonic earth, and because of the crimson demonic earth, she was close to the extent that she could not be touched by any attack. Thus, it was very difficult for the Empress's regulations of time to take effect on her, but there was not the slightest difficulty in exerting them on herself. The two of them clashed, and the regulations of time was indeed the highest level of regulations there was, and was also a major regulation that any realm would be equipped with. It was incomparably strong. It could only be seen that the Empress was beating down on the red-clothed woman, while the latter's counterattacks were all wasted effort, as they could not hit their target at all. The red-clothed woman's defeat was only a matter of time, and it would not take too long, either. Humph! To actually dare commit a crime against the line of Blue North. What brazen courage! Amidst a loud cry, two men arrived, each of their faces bearing a strong sense of pride. Yet when they saw how the red-clothed woman was disheveled, and how her black hair had all turned gray, they both paled in shock. Was this still their 19th junior sister that prized beauty like her own life? 19th junior sister, how have you become like this? I will come and help you. The two men rushed out at practically the same moment, but bewitching maiden Ro humphed lightly. She shot out and stood in their way, rebuking the two men harshly. Step down. She was skilled in the art of enchantment, but she walked the path of royalty. Others would submit to her, worship her, and admire her, but it was not the type for seducing others. Otherwise, Ling Han would not have tacitly approved of her presence, either. With this exclamation, both men looked dazed. The gaze they directed at bewitching Maiden Ro was first vacant, but then became feverish. It was as if they had encountered their benefactor of 9 lifetimes. They wanted nothing more than to lower their heads and bow, surrendering even their lives without the slightest hesitation. Shen Hao couldn't help but stare. These two were both his junior brothers, and their strength had long since reached the peak stage of the ascending origin tier, but that woman did so as well. Yet, without even a single blow, both of them had knelt directly. He could not accept this at all. The two men stepped down as commanded, while their eyes gazed feverishly at bewitching Maiden Ro. They only needed a word from her, and they would be willing to go through water and tread on fire. The red-clothed woman almost threw up blood. "Weren't you guys saying that you wanted to help me? Now, what the heck are you two doing?" In a moment of distraction, she was instantly hit with a series of blows from the Empress. The heaven-destroying 9 swords slashed out, and she was covered with blood all over. Several places of her clothing had also been torn, and she looked incredibly battered. The Empress would not quit while she was ahead. She raised her hand slightly and sent out another sharp gust with a finger. It turned into a flash of frightening sword chi, which would kill the red-clothed woman. "Please have mercy." Shen, how hurriedly moved. No matter how lazy he was, there was no way that he could just stand by and watch his junior sister being killed. Pung, he managed to block this blow. An astonishing flush suddenly rose up on his initially fair face, as if he was drunk. This was because the Empress's sword chi was too harsh. Though he had resolved the blow, his blood had still been shaken. He felt he was close to spluttering out a mouthful of blood. He paled in shock. He had only known that the Empress was very strong, but after taking on this blow, he had a first-hand experience. No wonder his junior sister would be suppressed by the Empress even after consuming 2 mouthfuls of crimson demonic earth. The Empress's eyes sharpened, exuding a boundless dominance. She was going to kill a rebellious subject, and someone actually dared to stop her? She would just kill both of them then. Ling Han grinned and said, "Wife, just stop for a moment." He thought that Shen Hao was quite a nice guy, and it would be a pity if he died just like this. Only then did the Empress dismiss her intention. She walked back, her arms crossed behind her back, dominance and imperial might spreading out from her. Bewitching Maiden Ro also giggled and stepped back. Only at this did the 2 men snap out of their trance. They looked at one another, and both could see an intense shock and lingering fear from the other's eyes. If Bewitching Maiden Ro had commanded that they killed each other just now, they would definitely have executed her command without the slightest hesitation. It was not certain whether they would be dead or still alive now. Thinking about how their lives had been easily taken control of by another, their hearts squeezed strongly. Ling Han heard how the 2 of them had said the line of Blue North, and thus asked Shen Hao, "Are you all the disciples of Blue North King?" The red-clothed woman had gotten her breath back and shouted at Ling Han, "So you are afraid now?" Ling Han looked towards the red-clothed woman, his eyes clear and calm, but an aura was still pressing down on her. The red-clothed woman felt as if a large rock was weighing down on her heart, and even breathing was difficult for her. Her face instantly turned pale. "You are asking to be beaten." He moved and sent a slap through the air at her. When his hand rose, the force of the blow had already arrived. With a resounding slap, the red-clothed woman stumbled backward suddenly. She opened her mouth and spat out a few broken teeth along with blood. "Brotherling, though my junior sister speaks fiercely, she really does not have any malicious intent, so please have mercy." Shin, how hurriedly stepped in, the astonishment in his heart even stronger. Every single member of this group of 4 had powerful strength, and was completely different from the outsiders that they had imagined. Only then did Ling Han withdraw his gaze. Turning towards Shen Hao, he smilingly asked, "So you guys are just planning to stake a claim on this territory and say it's yours, so that you can seize the celestial tree inside for yourself?" "This is the territory of the line of Blue North, so the celestial tree naturally belongs to us," a man that had previously been enchanted by Bewitching Maiden Ro immediately declared to Ling Han. Ling Han chuckled. "Are you joking with me?" "Who's joking here?" That man was both furious and embarrassed. He was not a 3-year-old toddler. Ling Han brandished a fist. "All the treasures in this world should naturally be obtained by those who have big fists. I think that my fists are the biggest. Does any one of you disagree?" The man wanted to say something, but he could not say a word. Ling Han and his group were too strong. He and his companions had not been able to even unleash a single attack before being directly defeated. Now, they did not have the slightest bit of confidence left. Brotherling, even if you chase us off, it would be useless. Shin Hao shook his head. How so? Ling Han turned to look at him. Do you see that? This mountain fog can prevent entry. Shin Hao pointed at the valley that was enshrouded in fog. This is the first layer of protection, and after entering, it would be extremely dangerous. The closer you get to the celestial tree, the harder it is to approach. Though we have claimed this place, none of us have actually gotten near that celestial tree. Ling Han nodded. I know that. If someone had only staked a claim in the territory, it could not possibly be so difficult to harvest the celestial seed, because there would ultimately be someone who could obtain it. Furthermore, the very hardest trial would be the celestial tree itself, Shin Hao continued. It is only hearsay for me as well. The celestial tree possesses an amazing ability to flee and escape. No power can trap it. If it does not wish to bestow the celestial fruits to you, even a celestial king would be completely helpless. Ling Han's determination naturally would not waver with just a few words from him. He voiced some detailed queries to Shen Hao and soon gained a deeper understanding of this celestial tree. Where did the shards of celestial seeds come from? They were the pollen that was scattered when this kind of celestial tree was in its blooming season, or the fragrance that was contained in the fruit which spread through the winds and was thus obtained. The reason why Shen Hao and the others stayed here was firstly that they wished to obtain a complete celestial seed, but this was too difficult. Hence, they settled for the next best thing, planning to capture some of the rotten fruit, leaves, or the like that would be shed from the celestial tree. Gathering little by little would eventually accumulate, and they would then be able to piece an incomplete celestial seed.